days, right? So all the technology.
Right.
I'll buy Jeneth a couple more seconds
I know.
while she navigates through that. But yes. And you can also view any of the recordings on YouTube as well. On
The
Jeneth's
complete
channels.
recording. Yeah.
Yeah, the complete recording. And then we'll send out the replays for this. So invite your friends or share it if you hear some really good content that you're like, I think my girlfriend needs to hear this, or my bestie, forward the link, flip it to them.
Please forward the link.
Yeah, no, it'd be fun. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes, I know for me, it seemed like my best friend always knew when I needed, so more than I did. So we always share stuff like this, and it's really fun. Plus, we get to kind of bounce off each other. Well, I think we're ready.
Yeah. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Jeneth Blackert, and this is the Hot Hustle
podcast. I'm Bianca Reyna.
And this is Kerri Hummingbird, who is joining us live in studio today.
In person. Woo!
So excited to have a live guest. It was funny, I hunted her down and found that she was doing an Austin fire walk. And I was like, Austin? Well, I knew that she was Central Time Zone. And then I was like, wait a second, what is this that I hear? And I was like, hey, would you want to come in our studio? And she was like, okay.
And see, now there's no excuses because you can't say that you live across the country. Now you must come walk on fire with me.
Yes,
I
yes,
know.
absolutely. Wait, so
You're gonna have to.
We'll have to plug it.
Yeah, okay. So I lead fire walks and kind of like Tony Robbins, except not like Tony Robbins. So Tony Robbins is a wonderful human and he's well known and he's a masculine person leading a fire walk. And so there's a certain kind of energy with that. When I lead the fire walk, it's more from the feminine energy. It's more from the song and the spirit and the connection with the earth and the power of our vibration, our community spirit, the power of Mother Earth comes through, and we sing and we dance. And when we feel like walking across the fire, we walk. And so there's no like rah 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 go 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 go.
You can do it.
You don't do it.
It's not like that. It's not rah rah. It's like it's sacred. It's like, and I actually had this person who'd been to Tony Robbins. He was a guy. He'd been to Tony Robbins, and he's like, and I don't know that I can really say this, but he said, I thought fire was my my
yeah. Oh,
right?
You can
Can I say that? I thought fire was my bitch when I was with Tony Robbins. And he said, Kerri Hummingbird, walking across the fire with you, I realized that fire is sacred, that this is actually a sacred communion with Mother Earth. It's something really beautiful from the heart, and it's divine. And you opened me up, you woke me up that it's not it's not a new mountain to climb. It's a moment to be sacred. And so that really meant a lot to me that he said that. So if you want that experience, you can come to Austin, or you can pay my way to come out wherever you are and do it.
Yeah, create an experience in the Netherlands. Since we have a lot of people
I will
out
travel
there.
to the Netherlands. I actually have ancestry in the Netherlands. I would love to come.
Fun.
Awesome. You said it was really transformative. So, is that something that, how in which, I
Like what has changed?
What changes?
How has people changed from the experience?
Well, it's a transformational experience. And anyway, to walk on fire. But when I do it, I bring in my shamanic healing arts. And so I call on the elements, I call on the power of the fire, I call on earth, I call on the ancestors, and I call on our divine guidance to come in and support us in transforming through the experience of the fire walk. Mm-hmm. And so people go into a trance state almost immediately. And then you're in like this dreamlike state where you're not in normal reality.
Ooh, fun.
And you're like, wow, things have just opened up. I'm aware of new aspects of myself. And you're just in this sort of dreamy world for the duration of the event. And I've had people come and tell me that I walked on fire with you 5 years ago, and my life completely changed from that moment. This was a woman that came with her 2 teenage daughters who then, because of the transformation her mom had, because they said she came home a different person.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so I know that this works because I watched my mom change. I'm getting goosebumps, right?
Yeah.
And so, so they came and they experienced it, and they were like, "Wow, Kerri Hummingbird, like, thank you for opening me to the divine. Thank you for not just the concept of the divine, but the experience of the divine,
Wow.
like in your body, knowing it's present." We're all getting goosebumps here.
Yeah.
I know.
So like it's totally in the room, and yeah, it's all
amazing.
around us. So that's the experience that people have. And I used to think, how come they don't come and do it every single month? Because I do, I was doing it every month. And it's because it's so transformative. I think that for some people, it takes a while to integrate that experience because it's almost unbelievable that it would be that way. And so it takes a while to realize the fullness of that experience to be able to come back for more.
Yeah. Well,
Wow.
any time that you get to kind of change your vigilant system and drop it down into your entire body, I think that causes, starts a kind of spiral to change. Yeah.
Yes, once you become aware that there's something bigger than your body, you
Yeah.
can never change that awareness. And
Yeah.
that awareness keeps opening like a flower. It just keeps opening and opening and opening. And some people try to stuff it back down, but that's not the way to go. Like, keep it opening, keep it
Yeah.
expanding.
Yeah. It feels good to keep it expanding too.
It's fun.
Well, we're talking today about changing the narrative and your mythic story. Talk to us a little bit about what that mythic story is.
Ooh.
Yes. So most people operate in the literal story, so, and the literal story is however they decided the story was, right? With the chain of events and the sequence of things that they realized or thought were true. And then this happened, and then I felt like this, and then I couldn't believe this. And then that happened, and then you wouldn't believe how this person did that. And then there's like this sort of like narrative that you tell.
Sure.
And it cements it in because there's this sequence of things. And then if you get lost in it, you go back and say, wait, no, this happened next. So there's like this need, this addiction to telling it just like you think it was. But what most people don't realize is that the whole thing is a fiction. It's not true. None of it's true.
Because it comes through your perceptions?
Because it comes through your perceptual filters. It's
Yes.
only what you thought was true at the time.
Mhm.
And then, but you keep telling it. So you're making it more real by telling it over and over and over and over and over again. And then you get more of the same in your life that you say you don't want. So I only realized this after 20 years in weekly psychotherapy session. That's all the time it took me to figure it out, like half my life so far. And when I realized what I was doing, I finally said, okay, that's why if something isn't making you feel better after a certain amount of time, you should really stop doing it. Even if everybody in the world says that's the avenue to being healthy and happy, if you're not happy after 20 years of doing it, it really isn't working. So I finally said, bogus to all that. I'm not doing that anymore. It's not working for me.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm the oddball and it just doesn't work for me. But I also was taking the not feeling pills for about 13 years. I had the diagnoses, labels, and all that kind of stuff, right? And I was like, is this the life I want to live? Like if I was sitting in a movie theater watching my life as it was going, I would get up and leave the theater. I would say, I don't want to be here. I don't like this story. This story sucks. And, suicidal ideation was definitely part of my journey. Like, get me out of here.
Wow.
Like, I don't like this creation. I don't like what I'm experiencing.
Yeah.
And it's funny because last night, my husband and I just did the second of the conversations about The Mastery of Love. The Mastery of Love by Don Miguel Ruiz. It's a beautiful book.
Yeah.
And he talks about how don't believe yourself. Don't believe anyone else. Don't believe me, And so I'd like you to inject that right now. Like, don't believe what I'm saying. Don't believe anything because don't even believe yourself. Don't believe your story. So after 20 years of all that and the pills and everything, I just said, I don't want to live this story. So I'm a mom at this point. I've got 2 young kids, 2 young, beautiful boys. And I realized I kind of want to leave them. I don't want to leave them without a mom. So what's my option?
Yeah.
Now I got to change. So that I have to change.
That big C word, right?
The C word. I have to change.
Yeah.
And so I have to change everything. So I kind of went like burn the whole forest down and start over again. I was like that. Kali Ma is my savior. And so I just came through, burned the whole forest down and start over. And I kept my kids, obviously, but everything else I burned. I burned the relationship, I burned the psychotherapy, I burned the pills, I burned the job I'd been doing for 20 years.
Wow.
I just took a torch to all of it. Just
Oh,
Wow.
and my family was like, "What are you doing?
I bet they were.
You were so
I'm
nice
getting
before. You were so nice. You were such a good pleaser. You did everything we wanted. You were our scapegoat, and
Yeah.
now you're deciding not to do any of that. Oh, we don't like that."
Yeah.
So I ended up stumbling into my first teacher, who was gave me a copy of the Four Agreements. I wish I had seen that book in third grade. It would have explained why not to take it personally. So I read that book 30 times front to back. I reprogrammed my brain. Every single time I read that book, I'm like, okay, I know this is so simple when I read it. It's really hard to do it. How do I do this? The next level of my awakening was when I realized that there were forces larger than me that I could tap into that could transform everything much easier than I could do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I noticed, and many people maybe notice this, that when there's a conflict between you and another person and you're trying to work it out and you're having a conversation with them, it doesn't work really well. There gets to be this entrenchment, and we've seen this through the whole last few, since 2020, right?
Right.
I'm right, you're wrong.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
right, you're wrong. I know I'm right because I have this data. I know I'm right because I have this experience. And it's like you can't win. It's never going to resolve itself through the mind or through the egoic personality. It's never going to resolve itself. So I began to seek to open to say, okay, what more is possible? Because I wanted to completely radically transform my life. I didn't like the movie. I told you I wanted to get up and walk out of the theater. How can I create the life I really want? And then I started studying with Alberto Vialdo at the Four Winds. At the same time that I was studying with Heather Ashimara, Warrior Goddess Teachings, who was a protege of Don Miguel Ruiz. So I had two
Okay.
powerhouse
Oh, wow.
teachers
Yeah.
at the same time going through their program. I was like,
What was
give it to
that
me.
like?
Like, give me everything. I just want to consume the
Yeah.
shamanism buffet. Like,
I just have this vision of like your hair is on fire.
I'm just
It's
like, ah, I'm
Yeah.
coming out,
Yeah.
And I just went I'm out of here. I'm done with this whole story. I don't like any of this stuff. So I just soaked it all up. I was like, how do I do this? And at the same time, I was learning the Toltec wisdom from Heather Ashimara about you're the dreamer, you're the artist of your dream of life. Don't believe anything you think. Be the stalker, be the jaguar, hunt track
Wow.
yourself. Don't track everybody else. Track yourself. Hunt your consciousness.
Wow.
Find the places that you need to out of here. And then at the same time, I was learning also jaguar medicine from the Four Winds. I was learning about how I could shed that old skin. I was learning about how I could feed my jaguar all this stuff I didn't like. I was finding out about hummingbird medicine. And that was where I really learned about the mythic story. Because when we tell the literal story, we really believe it's true. And it's like this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened.
Especially when it was your past.
And and you recount it. It's like, well, I experienced that, and I remember how it was. I know the truth of how it was.
Right.
Do you really know? Are you sure?
Right.
Because hindsight is 2020.
Oh.
Perspective is 2020, right?
Yes.
And the more you learn and grow, the more you realize, the more you open up to the path of awareness, the more you realize, right? And the more you're like, I don't really think I knew what I was talking about back then. I'm laughing right now about my own teenagehood because I have teenagers now, and I'm just sitting here going bonk, bonk, bonk. So, this is how it goes, right?
Love this.
But the mythic story is where we open to that larger self, the larger energy, the spirit. And instead of telling, we listen. Instead of knowing, we get curious. We ask.
Mm-hmm.
And so we pull the oracle cards. Tell me my past, my present, and my future. What's the opportunity here?
Wow.
What story have I been living without knowing I was living it? Show me underneath the surface. And you pull the card, you see the image. Oh, that is so true. Right?
Mhm.
And I resonate with that. What's the story I'm going to choose to wrap up that history in today so that it makes sense as part of this epic transformation I'm in the present moment towards this outcome. Oh yeah, that's what I want over here. And you get to be the one that writes that story, that connects the dots. And then as you tell it with your power of word, it starts to manifest into reality. It becomes true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I do that during hypnosis, right? Like literally, I'll go into an alpha state and sometimes even deeper than that. And I will have like start a visual of me in it, in my life. And so that's kind of how I've changed my narratives over the years. And I've gone, I mean, we went from $50,000 in debt to having, you know, seven-figure business in one year. Actually, that took almost 2 years, but you know, there's the story, right? And there's the possibility. And I think that it's really cool to play that way, where you're in total lack mindset, and what does it take to actually create, you know, from a space of the unknown, right? This space of the undefined, you know, and allow the universe to give you the whispers to guide you along the way.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about how people do change their stories. How do they change
I
their
have a
narratives?
quick question though.
Sure.
Before you go into that, what was that time frame like? Like for that? Yeah, I'm just curious. You know,
Chaos?
It's right. I meant the duration, but yeah, well, because right, the repurposing principle. So you create the chaos, and then it it falls into place.
It's actually a really good question you're asking.
Yeah.
Because, you know, what we're seeking actually is probably something extremely peaceful, prosperous, beneficial, joyful, purpose-filled, you know, all the yummy good things that we all want to bring into our lives, right? That's what we seek.
Full, right? Yeah.
And the process of moving from the opposite of that into that, because we're obviously living the opposite of that whenever we start this inquiry, because we're like, wait a second, this isn't what I planned on when I was 5, you know. So we're actually in this process of what I call straddling the worlds. So you're in the current reality that you already created, and it has some momentum because you created it and you were living unconsciously in it for a really long time. So it's got like a lot of momentum, and it's just heading that way. It's just trucking on right through and creating more of the same. And when you're envisioning this, your plant, it's like you're gardening, you're tilling the soil and you're planting some seeds of what you are going to grow next. Then what's happening is that you're in the process. So you're in, and we are in this collectively right now. So let's speak to this for a second. And I just need to take a sip of water so I don't have to cough. But basically, the old Piscean age is tumbling down in wreckage because it's been exposed as the false lie that it has always been. And the systems and power over, and the structures of power over, and the victimization and the weakness that we have all felt, the powerlessness, and all of the paradigms that stem from that, the greed, the control, and everything else. That is all dismantling before our eyes. It's all tumbling down into the wreckage. At the same time, there are these like new fields of new earth being planted sacredly, secretly, by groups of awake people who are dreaming the new earth into being at every single day. And so that is already being built as the old is falling away. And so if you're only aware of the old falling away, you're in a lot of fear, because you're like, the world is ending, it's Armageddon, and everything is just going like it would be like the god Kerri Hummingbird came through with her torch and said, you know, like I did to my own life, right? Like, just like destroy it all, Kalima, you know. So, but what's actually happening is that this whole new, what happens in a forest fire, let's go there for a second, is that when a whole forest burns, what happens is that the soil actually gets re-nutrified by the fire and the composition of all the decaying materials that burst into flames. And then new seeds actually grow up in that. A whole new forest grows up.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a whole new forest that's been purified by what? By fire, which is also why I lead people across the fire and walk across the fire. Fire is a purifying agent. Fire has the 3 building blocks of creation: the electric blue light of truth, the rose-colored light of compassion, and the golden light of energy. And so that flame purifies everything, so that I'm getting the chills again, so that everything
Me
can
too.
grow up from the new and be created anew. And we're in that process collectively now. So it looks like chaos, but chaos is only part of a pattern. If you look at chaos, and this is from Richard Rudd's material with the Gene Keys, if you look at the shadow of chaos, you're just looking at the one piece where everything is in friction and turmoil, and while the new is being regenerated. If you looked at the whole arc of it, you would see the sacred geometry forming. But you can't see that if you're only looking
Cool.
at this slice.
Yeah.
So you're all freaked out, but actually it's perfect. It's doing exactly what it's meant to do. It's dissolving the Piscean age, and it's creating space for the Aquarian age to come in. So that's where we're at. And so you, being a microcosm of the macrocosm, are experiencing that in your own life too. And so you got to get good at straddling the worlds. It's like, up until now, this is what I thought was true. I'm completely dismantling all of that because I realized it was all based on false lies. And I'm building something new. And the new that I'm building is here for me and for my progeny, 7 generations forward. And so I'm very consciously, intentionally creating something new called New Earth for my particular slice of heaven on earth. And so while you keep your vision on that, and then you don't, you know this is happening, but it's not your focus. Your focus is the future. Your
Gosh, I love
focus
that.
is what you're creating. And this decay is all part of the transmutation process of that future forming. So that's straddling the worlds. So we're all in that right now.
Yeah.
Every
yeah.
one of us.
You know, I one time in meditation, and I've heard this before, but it's more about being the chaotic element to, and chaos sounds bad for us and something that we want to run from and the unknown. But when we're that chaotic element and literally surrendered to the whispers, we are, that part of that sacred geometry, so to
Right,
speak,
right.
that just one piece where we're actually, nobody else is following the energy necessarily, or some are, and we're that chaotic element. So, I love how
I
you
felt
put that.
very
That's
liberated.
so beautiful.
When I was burning down the
Yeah.
forest, it was the most liberating time I've ever had in my life.
I can't
was
imagine.
So liberated.
You're literally the
I'm
phoenix.
just going to destroy it all. Like,
Phoenix hummingbird.
other people don't respond well. Other people don't always respond well to that, but
Well, let's work with the audience and help them change some of the narratives that they are struggling with. And I feel like any level that we're at, we all have some narrative that's going on in our life, whether it's like a pain in your body, or it's a neurotic child that you're dealing with, or what have you. So do you want to work with the audience in
Yeah.
helping them change their narratives?
sure thing.
So if you are on the Zoom, you simply just raise your hand. There's a raise your hand button on your dashboard in the Zoom. And also you can write in your questions. And you can also anonymously write in your questions to the host if you don't want everyone to know your question or who you are. But because we want this to be very much a haven and very much a safe space. But we also want people to get exactly what they need. And Kerri's been so sweet to bless us with her time and came into the studio, and so we can take some live callers today. So if you raise your hand, there we go.
and Kerri, set this up, and you can type in your
yeah.
question too. What specific question do they need to ask you to move you forward in helping them? Like, what do they need to give you exactly?
A nutshell. So not too much, like, I don't want that first this happened, then that happened, and this other thing happened, and then I don't need all of that.
Because that's the story we're
Because
taking away
that's the
from,
story
right?
we're releasing. Although if
Yeah.
you tell me that, I'll tell you why that's not working. But yeah, just like a nutshell, and then I might stop you if you're going into the too much detail.
Oh, that's me. I do that.
So
Raise his
why?
hand. Let's see. We've got Joe, who's raised his hand. We'll take you on for just a second.
Go ahead and unmute yourself, Joe.
I am unmuted.
Great.
Hey.
I just got here a few minutes ago, but I caught the chaos thing, and that's always been a thing of mine. Chaos is a word,
Mm.
and all words have connotations that go with them, just like who defines chaos? Who defines order? Why don't we just drop it and let source be the one that defines what's happening? We have to make sense. As human beings, we make sense out of everything. Does it always have to
So,
make sense?
Does it have to
No.
make sense? No, I agree with you. It doesn't have to make sense. But, you know, it's like
And
when
I
we,
was just, the question was, can you define that from your perspective a little bit more of how that part works? Do we need the words?
that's a really good question. So, what I'm going to offer you, Joe, is this. You don't need to make sense of it in the mind, but what you might want to consider doing is making sense of it in the body. So it's really more about integration. It's about integrating it into your being. Whatever the chaotic thing is rising up for your witnessing, maybe it's destroying something from your life, it's removing it. It might be opening up new avenues of potential that feel a little bit frightening. You've got to step into a bigger area, something that's unknown. It might be calling you forth to that. And so, in order to really make the most of that energy, it's to let it integrate in your body. And so, one way you can do that is through ritual and ceremony. So, one ceremony that you can do is a fire ceremony. That's a really rapid ceremony where you, in whatever way that you would do, and I offer ways in all of my books for opening sacred space. So, whatever way you would create a sacred space is how you would do it according to your belief system and your, you know, how you conceive of yourself as consciousness. And then to work with that fire, that element of primal energy, right? So the electric blue light of truth, the rose colored flame of compassion, and the golden light of energy and vitality. And so you would just take this experience, maybe blow it into some burnable object like a toothpick, just like everything you're feeling, all the stories, and then give it to the fire, gift it to the fire. Let the fire transmute that energy, and then you can pull it back to your centers, to your mind, you know, right thinking, to your heart, right love, and to your will center, right action. That'll help distill the energy so that you can actually get a lot more clarity in your life, because the gift frequency of chaos is innovation. So chaos is always calling us forth to innovate, to create a new, something new, right? Through the old energies that we've mulched, right? We want to birth something new, create something new. And so the fire can help you integrate what's being dissolved so that you can create something new. And when you're in the gift frequency of innovation, people like being around you. I mean, so if you're the person that's always got chaotic things happening and it's just always like this, and you know,
well, that's havoc, more havoc than
havoc.
chaos, don't you think?
I
havoc
think you can
is
create
something.
havoc out of chaos.
Well, totally, you did. You know, but so listen for a second.
Yeah.
So I think of it this way. When you're like, oh my God, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening. My life is like blowing up in flames, you know, crashed my car and everything has happened. I look at that as the universe giving us like, hey, you're off path. You have lost the guidance within, and you've created havoc out of your brain control, right? What are your thoughts? What do you guys think about that?
Say, I almost view, and maybe maybe I'm not viewing this fully, but I almost view that as almost two different things. Like sometimes it can be the universe sending you that message, or it could be that you are using that for a gain of some sort, right? So you're holding on to those chaotic moments, like my car is this, my this
That's
and this, my this
havoc,
and
though.
this.
I like
Okay,
havoc.
the havoc. For a reason, right? So maybe there's sympathy for you, or maybe you use it to get out of like work or whatever it is. That maybe there's a gain from that too. So it could be both sometimes too.
This is,
Yeah,
but
and
technically it's control.
there's a third option.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's hear the third option.
Woo!
So there, yes and
It's like,
yes.
wait.
Because when I was in my havoc, like the chaos was happening and I was in my havoc around it, like, oh, poor me. I was
Oh,
using it for,
okay.
oh, poor me. Look at my
Oh,
terrible, I
Yes,
misunderstood and
that's
I'm not
how-
appreciated and la la la, like
Yeah.
all that stuff, right? The self-pity story. And then I was in self-destruction, like I just can't take this movie anymore. And so all of that, right? And there's a third option. The third option is this, because what happened to me was that I had been going along doing both of those things, right? And then I was also not being true to myself. And I was making a lot of agreements that were false for me. And I was living out of conditioning. And I was martyring myself, right, to people. I was being the scapegoat and I was martyring myself and I was being the pleaser and I wasn't really speaking my truth and I wasn't leaning in to say like what was actually up. So what happened was life conspired to bring so much chaos, so much friction, so much external pressure to me that I had to change. I had to choose to change or die. Either way. So sometimes the chaos comes from the outer world and you're just like doing your thing that you're doing. You think you're doing the right thing or whatever, but it's actually not serving you because you're totally living conditioned. And then the outer world comes in and all this chaos comes to you that you didn't instigate. And then you're like, I didn't deserve this. I didn't do this. It wasn't me. But yet it's happening because you need to be broken out of your stuckness. You need to be broken free and liberated, which is what happened to me. I got liberated from my falseness. And I got to reveal parts of me that were trying to bust free, the parts of me that speak my truth, like you see today, the part of me that has a lot of things to say, the part of me that has an opinion, the part of me that is like, I'm strident, I'm powerful. But I was not being this before, people.
Yeah.
I was being a pleaser. I was not speaking my truth. I was, suppressing myself. I was running away from conflict. I was doing everything but stand in my place and speak what was actually going on for me. So life just came and said, no more of that, and this other side of me came out that had powerful opinions.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, one of the things that kind of has come up in me while you were talking is, the people that, know they've got this narrative and they don't know how to deal with it. For example, I think victim is a narrative, right? Where it's like, poor me, I can't do it, I don't have it, right? It kind of even goes down to worthiness, which we're talking about next with Terri Britt. And I really feel that there's these narratives around lack. There's not enough. And can we pick one of the general narratives and help with like unlocking that for the group?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And Bia asked,
Can I jump back in here a second? Since
just
that
a
discussion,
second,
I
Joe.
have to.
Can
Okay.
you wait a minute? Because I kind of want to go through something, if that's okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, I'm just a second. Let me just get this out first. And this brought up something with me too, that Gia said, any suggestions on what to ask my future self to create my mythic story, right?
That's a great
Like,
question.
I really feel that what came up was this asking of questions has really been my way to unlock everything. not just like real questions like, how do I change this? But these like bizarre questions that nobody really asks, like, what energy, space, and consciousness can me and my body be to change, this, whatever it is, with total ease, right? So I'd ask these questions that were just kind of open-ended. It's not looking for the universe to come back with one thing, but those questions of like energy, space, and consciousness, or what will it take, those kind of questions really seem to have always moved me forward. So I felt like Gia's question around that was just beautiful because we're creating our future self for sure.
Yeah, so that's a really excellent question, and where I would go with this is when we are focused on the anthill of our lives, there's a lot of action going on in that anthill that could take all of our attention for like a really long time. As a matter of fact, the rest of our lives, we could just stay focused on that.
Yeah.
And when we're in that, we're in the conditioned story, right? So it takes a great deal of strength and fortitude to take a step back from that anthill, trust that it's going to keep doing its thing, like without you paying attention to it. And then taking a breath, taking a moment, opening up space for something larger than your current incarnation to come forward and give you some wisdom. Because the thing is that the soul part of us is beyond time. So we are in time. We are in the conjunction of time and space. And in the Andes, they call this the Pacha Mama. So the Pacha is the intersection between time and space, and Mama is Mother Earth, right? So Mother Earth is the intersection between time and space. And when we're in time and space, we're in a continuum of time. So we are in a timeline, okay? So we are experiencing a timeline with our awareness. But there's not just one timeline, you guys. There's like infinite timelines possible, because every single time you make a choice, that opens up another highest destiny potential. So every choice you make contributes to the potentials that are unfolding in front of you. So your highest destiny is what you're after. If you're really playing the mythic story game, your highest destiny is the one you're going for. And you want to stay aligned with that highest destiny line. So in order to do that, you've got to continually open to, yes, what is my highest potential at the end of this particular timeline? That is my highest destiny line. Oftentimes I'll have meditations where I guide people to access their highest destiny line, and then to talk with the one that they become at the end of that highest destiny line and have a conversation. Like, what key information do I need right now in order to walk the path to become you? Like, what advice would you give me way back here 20 years before you pass that would support me to live a better life, to live a more mythic life, to call forth all the things I dream of? And so when we're focused on the anthill, we forget our dreams.
Yeah.
We're not thinking about our dreams if we're focused on the anthill. We're just focused on controlling the chaos that is in that anthill. And we're trying to like make it stop or fix it, or, it's a problem, or, like how to control this madness. And when our focus is there, that's all we can focus on. We don't have room for dreams. So what I'm suggesting is that we turn our focus away from the anthill and we focus on the horizon. We focus on what is possible. We don't like forget that the anthill is there. Obviously, we're not going to bypass that. That would be called a spiritual bypass. But what we're going to do is focus on the horizon, pull in the energetics of the highest potential, pull in the energetics of the life we really do want to live, the dream that we have in our hearts, the dream that we came as souls to incarnate, to experience in this lifetime. We don't want to forget that. That's the juice. That is soul nectar. That is the beautiful thing. We want to call that forth. And then through the lens of that, face the anthill. So because when we know where we're going and we know what the dream is, then everything's in a context. It makes sense what's going on in the anthill. Back to John's question, Jim's question. So that is what happens. Okay. So when we see the anthill as the anthill, and so all we see is chaos we're trying to control. When we see it through the lens of our dream, of what we're
Yeah.
calling into being, then the anthill, we see it through a whole different lens and perspective. Now we can start taking different actions, and we can write a different story about it. So for example, I have 3 teenagers at home. Well, actually, one 24-year-old, that's my biological son, and 2 younger kids that are in high school that are, high schoolers. So let's just say that. Just everyone take a breath for me. Thank you.
I'm a high schooler too. That's
Yeah,
learning to drive.
So my eldest son, this is like the 3rd time he's been back home. Okay. So if I'm focused on the anthill, I can be like, this isn't the way it's supposed to be. He's supposed to blah, 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 blah. And I can have my list of things, conditions that I've been taught as a mother that if I had parented correctly, he would be doing these things, right? And I can totally get down on myself that he's not doing any of the things he's supposed to be doing by our cultural standards, right? So I can get all admired and enmeshed in that conversation and then try to fix him. Which I have tried and failed. Okay, so when I put the lens of my highest destiny line, and I remember that as a soul, I came in for New Earth. I came in to guide and help all of us come together in community, out of this separation, back into unity, where everybody has a voice and everybody has a path and everybody has a unique thumbprint and everybody's taking their soul journey, and where it's all perfect just the way it is, and we're all learning our lessons side by side, not taking it personally what anyone else is doing, focused on ourselves. When we focus on ourselves, we can be in community with each other. And then when I add in the dream that my son would walk by my side and be part of my community as one of the teachers, I have a whole different lens that I'm looking at what's going on. I'm looking at it from a completely different space, guys. Now I'm seeing the hand of the divine in the anthill. And I'm asking a really different question, which is, what support in this moment would actually help the alchemy that my son is going through towards our common objective that we lead this community together? What can I actually provide? And what am I learning as a facilitator through his engagement with me? Because he's in my program right now. Through his engagement with me in this program as a student with other students, what do I need to learn through this relationship that will help me in every other relationship?
Wow.
And the answer is boundaries. What? Like, I've been tested on it already. Like, I've had people want to tell me stuff, and I'm like, that's not, thank you. And that's not that's his. So you can talk to him about that. So it's like, when you look at things like that, it puts a different lens on everything. And it basically shows you that life is totally conspiring to bring your dreams, your soul dreams into fruition. And this is the way you must walk through to manifest it. And yes, it's going to include some discomfort. Absolutely. It's going to include challenges, initiations, and discomfort.
I mean, like right now, I feel like doing all these cartwheels. I'm like, woo, yes, I'm
on track.
And then I look out, like, out of the space that you created here for us, and I'm like, oh, sometimes like life just comes and I forget.
We forget.
And how do you stay in that? How do you continue to bring it back? Just in everyday practice.
Firewalks.
Hey, tobacco, lots of tobacco. So, like, you asked me a good question. So I told you I have a house full of teenagers and young people. And you know what they go through. So,
oh my gosh.
So it creates a kind of groupthink, so anywhere where people are gathered, and this, you've heard like the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yes.
Well, 3 of those people for me are young people. So I'm just like, I'm in trouble. So I like put myself around other people. So I have other communities that I engage in, right?
Yes.
So I keep myself around other high vibrational people. I do daily practice. So I have communities that I do daily practice with, and I also do daily practice on myself. So I open sacred space every morning. I don't fail at that. I open sacred space. I light all my altars. I have an altar for our community. I have an altar for these other little communities that I'm part of. I open sacred space, I pull the cards. What's the medicine today? What do
Wow.
I need to
I
understand?
feel like I should get out my
today?
cards.
And I just like pull the card, I look at it, I do my own little mythic story inside of me because it's become such a part of what I do that I don't need to write it all out anymore necessarily.
Yeah.
But I just go, okay, this I feel. And you want to feel it in your body. And it feels true. When you pull the card and you read the message or you look at the card and the image and you go, oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay, that's where we're at. And today's card for me was the Sacred Witness. So stop trying to fix it, right? You're not going to fix it. You can't fix the group think from the level of mind. The group think from the level of mind defends itself because it's the ego. It defends itself. So you got to go into the energy. You have to go into the soul and into the mythic story and into feeling it to heal it, transmute the energy, and let spirit do the unfolding, right? So I just blew tobacco all over my whole house. I blew my spirit water, which has a little bit of Sachamama in it, serpent energy for shedding that old skin, and blew that everywhere and just brought the guides in. And now I just sit back and watch. I don't do anything.
And that's the
I don't
witness.
engage.
Yeah.
I just let them figure it out. It's not mine to fix, and people only listen when they're ready to listen. So
True.
you have to know
Yes.
when to zip it.
My next question is like, so when some people have asked me this before, and I have always had natural vision and natural desires and things like that, but I feel that, talking with some of the younger crowd, some of them actually don't feel like they have vision, right? They don't know what they want. They have like little inklings of what they might want. But what would you say to somebody that says, I talk about rehearsing your vision, like before you get up, keeping your eyes closed and taking a moment to rehearse the day that leads you to your bigger vision and things like that, right? And I've played with that lots and lots of times. But I find that with both of my kids, they don't, actually know what they want. They kind of have some things that they're trying, but they don't know. And what is your suggestion on unleashing clarity around what's next, maybe is how to put that.
Yeah.
A lot of words.
So what I do is I encourage them to open sacred space, which they may or may not do. But I
They
do.
don't know what's a sacred space.
They see me do it. They know how to do it.
Ooh.
So
Sorry.
I open up sacred space in the house, and I create an environment in which their consciousness is already immersed inside sacred space. Now they could completely reject it if they want because they have choice, or if they're just sort of unconscious, it's going to start penetrating the dense layers. And basically I invite them to, like, this has been really a thing for my 24-year-old because he's like, I'm trying to figure out my next step.
Yeah.
So I offer a lot of grace for that because I remember when I was 24 and I had jumped into a Silicon Valley job. I had a choice between two different jobs. One that was really safe and predictable, a tech writer for this company that had been around for a while. And I was going to be basically in place in an office working on really dry material. But it was going to pay really good, And then there was another job that was marketing I was going to travel all over the place, and it was a new product and it may not work out. And it was more adventure. But at the time I chose the safe job, right? Because I was like, oh, I just want money. I just want safety. And so I chose this job, but I wasn't satisfied, I never was. And about a month after I took that job, I had met my former partner, the father of my kids, and we went off and we did mushrooms by the beach, and I'd never done mushrooms. And I had this moment of standing at the ocean. The whole ocean was rolling into me, and there was a symphony happening as it hit the rocks. And all the little stones were tinkling and making noise, and it was so beautiful. And I felt like that Maxwell Parrish drawing, painting of this woman just meeting the ocean. And I was like, I am a goddess. Oh my God, I am a goddess. And it was really hard to go back to my job after that with the popcorn ceiling. So there's these moments like that I feel like many of our youth are experiencing because they are doing mind expanding substances. Not that I think that is not the solution. I believe, but it is an avenue for opening up access to higher consciousness and unity consciousness, and having those moments of clarity of remembering who you are in truth that are so profound, and then letting that guide your life. Like,
Wow.
saying that energy, I don't even know where it's taking me, but that energy, I welcome you, energy, to guide me to my next choice. Like, what would
I
that
like
energy
that.
do?
See, yeah,
right?
I feel like my daughter would be open to that for sure. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
And I think that's why we have so much
Meditation.
plant medicine going on right now.
Right.
yeah. We actually have somebody coming on talking plant medicine.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Let's talk the 4 directions.
Yes.
Tell us
Do we
about
have
that.
an experience rather than talking about it?
Oh, let's go.
Okay. Yes.
How much time do we
Did I
have?
just
Can we
do-
just...
Yeah,
we have
let's go
time.
10 minutes.
Okay, 10 minutes. I'll ask the guys, make it quick.
minutes.
I'll open sacred space in a deeply beautiful but quick way. So everybody, just, if you feel comfortable, just close your eyes if you feel safe to do so. And if you want, like, even place a hand over your heart, hand over your belly, just to comfort your body, this being that is holding your spirit, this being made of Mother Earth, holding you, holding yourself. And we welcome the South. Sachamama, Great Serpent, wrap your coils of light around us. Help us to feel loved, here, present in our bodies, connected with Mother Earth, with our home planet, feeling her love and grace coming up through the bottoms of our feet and all the way through our bodies, unhindered, welcoming Mother Earth to support us. She has so much energy for us to receive, so much prosperity, so much love, so much joy, so much presence. Heaven is right here on earth, under our feet. So just welcoming Sachamama to open that up for you so you can really feel it and perceive it, and opening your heart and opening your mind, coming present. And we welcome the West. O Tarongo Jaguar, protect this medicine space. Show us the way beyond this current incarnation to a larger understanding of ourselves as spirit. Help us walk across that rainbow bridge, light as a feather, leaving all that karma behind, all the heaviness, all the density. Help us to discern through the smoky mirror what's clear, what's true. Help us to see with clarity, to see the truth, to feel the truth, to know the truth, and to release the lies. Help us to become a little skeptical of ourselves and others. Skepticism always releases the false. It never releases the true. So we welcome you, Jaguar, for that presence, that awareness. Thank you, West, for releasing all that doesn't serve with ease and grace and expanding us to new potentials. We welcome the North, the place of Kerri Hummingbird. Help us access our soul self, our true soul essence, our imagination, our creativity, our inner child, the divine child, the one who creates. We welcome our ancestors who have come before us to this earth school and have much wisdom to share with us in the bones of our bodies and whispering in our ears. We welcome all the medicine lineages that support my work to say hello. And we welcome the High Council of Earth School, White Eagle, White Buffalo Calf Woman, Yahshua Ben Yosef, Guadalupe, Tanansin, all the master teachers, the Buddha, the Christ. Call in yours. It's all one. And we welcome the North to remind us of who we are in truth and love. And I say these words from Paul Selig on behalf of us all. I know who I am in truth. I know what I am in truth. I know how I serve in truth. I am here. I am here. I am here. I am free. I have come. Behold, I make all things new. Thank you, North. And we welcome East, Eagle Condor, flying so high in the sky. Help us to fly high as well. Help us to fly high above that anthill, that drama, to see with more clarity through the eyes of soul so we can come back in with renewed enthusiasm, with compassion, with love, with grace, right into the middle of that anthill and bring so much love to it that it just comes to a standstill. We're so grateful, East, for new earth, new visions, highest destiny, giving every person their highest destiny line right now, instantaneously, awareness of it, connected with their knowing in their hearts. Thank you, East. And we welcome the earth below, Pachamama Mother Gaia. Thank you so much for this beautiful, healthy, strong bodies and minds that can heal instantly. Thank you for your constant loving support through our bodies, for holding us so sweetly. Thank you for all the allies you've gifted us for this journey in earth. We welcome all the mountain spirits, the sacred apus. We welcome all of the rocks, the stones, and the crystals that keep us clear and true with activations of higher consciousness and wisdom. We welcome all the tree nations that ground us into the earth with those mushroom mycelial networks, connecting us into Earth's consciousness, helping us to become aware that we are one. We welcome all of the elements, the earth, the water, the fire, the air, to support us on our journey, and all of the animals and the birds and the plants, all the life in the oceans, all the life in the meadows and the forests and the jungles, the canyons, the deserts, the islands, the beaches, the Arctic, all over this beautiful earth with all its biodiversity. We say yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for all you give us. We are here as stewards of your beauty. We are witnessing you. We are here to support. We love you. We thank you, Mother Earth, for this gift of life. And we welcome Father Sky, Auntie Taita, Father Sun, Grandmother Moon, Mama Kia, and the Star Nations. Thank you for the sunlight, the moonlight, the starlight, the rainbow light. Thank you for all the support from all of our Star Nations in activating our Homo Luminous, our rainbow body consciousness, waking us up. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we welcome God, Source, Creator, Great Spirit, Divine Mother, the consciousness, the presence, the essence, Yahweh, Allah, all the names that describe the one thing going on here that we are a part of, that's inside of us, that permeates everything we see, feel, touch, smell, know, think. Everything is one. Aho. And so it is.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yes. Welcome.
That was so amazing.
It's interesting. Sometimes you just need to reconnect. And remember, you forget, like you forget every hour of your life.
Yeah, so you'll often see me breathing in the agua farita because that also reminds me. So I blow all kinds of prayers in there during healings. And then when I get a little lost, I'm like, like, wake me back up, please.
There's something to that, the pranayama. I've done that I really dove deep into it, and I haven't really been doing it lately. But you just, when you breathe, things change. And I've got somebody that, at Soma Breath that, really talks about how breath changes your consciousness. And I think that there's something to that.
It's true.
And it doesn't matter how you breathe, but remembering to breathe in that way is your indicator. Mine, I have this process called awesomeness, and I do these touches on the body, and that's my reminder.
Yeah.
And this was kind of the first symbol that came through with that when I brought that in. It's kind of interesting. You've got your own thing. I think everybody else probably has their own thing as far as that thing that brings them back to the present moment. And if not, they should have a hypnotic suggestion to do so. I can help you with those hypnotic suggestions.
Yeah, and I love how you bring yourself back to your body.
Yes. Well, that's my way. I don't know that that's everyone's way. I had a friend who would just touch herself on the head. She'd be like, "Get back in there."
Or wiggle your toes and be all the way in, not just up to
I
the
know, right? All the way down there.
All
Sometimes
the
when
way in.
my head is noisy, Joe's like, come on down. When my head just like, I've just got like lots going on. I'm just like, okay, just go from here to heart. That's all you need right now. Just move on down, move that energy down.
You can even like do your kegels
Oh yeah.
while breathing. At least to breathe yourself into your root chakra, which is the connection point
Yeah.
to Mother Earth, and open it back up.
You should do that no matter what. It's
Yeah,
like good for
because
you.
it's like, I'm doing it right now. So
I was too.
if it gets
Let's all do our
stuck, let's all
kegels.
kegel. But if you kegel, it like you're opening up access to, like you're putting attention, like anywhere you put attention, the energy flows,
Flows.
right?
Yeah,
So
or
if you're-
awareness.
Your awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you focus on that, like it opens it back up. Because yeah, we stop breathing, as women especially.
Yeah.
I had to retrain myself, and sometimes I still catch myself holding my breath.
I do
and-
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joe Dispenza, he
just
talks,
gonna say that.
funny. He talks about an open focus meditation, and it takes you really out of your brain because you're putting awareness, it's like, can you put awareness in your pinky toe, your right pinky toe, right? And it's like, as soon as you do that, you have all that energy down there by that pinky toe. And he walks you through these different elements. You probably know this. Everyone probably has heard of
Well, maybe
meditation
not
of Joe
everybody, but he
Dispenza,
does have some good meditations for sure.
where you, it's not your thinking, you're not visualizing, it is awareness. And I think that really changed me when it was like, you don't visualize it in your toe, you put awareness in your toe. And when I got that, and it actually stopped my brain from yapping, I thought that's really the key, a lot of key.
Yeah, and
awareness,
you can get your
breath.
attention down just by wiggling your toes too.
Yeah,
Just
absolutely.
like wiggling them and making because you're aware of it when you're wiggling it. So
Well, let's talk. You put together a special offer package, and it includes a session with you, an optional session. Let's go ahead and share that with everyone, and you can go ahead and go through. Tell us a little bit about this, like this sacred living course.
yeah, so you guys just experienced opening Sacred Space, and that was a teaser.
Yeah, it was
That was
10-minute
powerful.
fast,
So gosh,
fast
if there's a-
10-minute teaser.
Yeah, if that's a course, then I mean, this is really going to take them in. This is fun.
Yeah, it'll take you deep.
Yeah.
And the thing is that I was opening the Sacred Space for a really long time and just kind of saying it as words, but it wasn't really landing as like a knowing of a certain energetic coming in to greet me or work with me. And so when I studied with the Power Path, actually, there's something that they really have a good relationship with the four directions. And so all of a sudden it clicked. And I was able to embody a knowing of these energetics. The South is a being of light. The West is a being of light. It's an energetic. So when I was able to really embody that, I could feel the presence come in. And the more that I can feel the presence and I have a relationship, the more I can share that with everybody else, right?
Yeah,
So you just
had
witnessed
me-
it.
You had me jump in.
Yeah,
I
like
could
goosebumps and
feel it.
everything.
Yeah, I could, and even a little bit of sound was coming through. I was like, okay, just don't be too wild.
It's like,
But it's
yeah.
definitely it's very expansive. And you do feel, like physically feel when you were talking and just sharing a little while ago.
Yeah, well, it's important to me to feel because mind is only a concept. But as an empath, when I can feel it, I know it's true. So I take people on journeys. So there's 4 course sessions, or each an hour long, or about 45 minutes to an hour. And there's a time of dropping in specifically with the winds of the South, for example, and having a journey with the South and asking questions and receiving input and feeling the energy is like really powerful to have that sustained interaction with the South, because then what's happening is that because I've embodied that connection and I'm sharing it with you and you're now receiving it from me, the longer you can stay in that energy, the more you embody it yourself, the more you get the dose of it. So each one of the directions has a meditation with one of the directions and a time for you to ask questions, to drop in, to get a deeper relationship with that direction. And then the last piece of the package is a healing session with me. So I'm a shamanic healer, and 30-minute session is remarkably powerful. It doesn't take much time, and it also doesn't require a whole lot of story. So you can come in with, this basic situation is happening. You'll have about 5 minutes to share with me, what the situation is. And then we'll go into the medicine. We'll go into tobacco, open up tobacco, open up, we start with opening the directions. You'll already feel that trance state starting to come in where the story is less important. And what's more important is the energetic under the story is the soul lesson that's actually been being learned. And we can help you arrive at that soul lesson so that you really understand what's been happening and why. Getting back to that earlier question, when you embody the healing, when the false is cleared away, the truth remains. And usually the ego can really hide from us the thing that we're actually learning through the lesson. And so the shamanic healing gets that part out of the way so you can have more comprehension of what's going on.
Wow.
So with this package, it's right now set up just for the digital, and then you'll have an optional, get a single session with Kerri here, and that will be an additional $100, and that'll be sent through the email.
Yeah.
So that we can figure
And it
that
really
out.
complements each other. Like, I know that I'm sure that you put this together for us at a very generous, pricing, and because this is your time and, time away from those teenagers, right? But, but really it's meant to take them, they have the digital downloads, but then they have that guidance, that session with you, and then they can utilize those downloads later, right? So it really takes, and it helps to just be together for longer. For me, I envision, and you can tell me a little bit about it, how they work together, and how you do that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with the recordings is that you can listen to them over and over again, right? So,
Might be something to fall asleep to.
yeah, it might. I
Yeah.
mean, south would be a good one to fall asleep to.
South,
But
go
you can-
south.
yeah, south is very nurturing. So, yeah, I mean, the recordings are something, you're taking a journey. So you can always go back to the recording and take another journey with one of the, let's say you realize that there's a situation in your life that really needs to be released. You can go back into the journey with the West, and you can say, okay, West, help me release this. I am ready to go with this. I'm ready to have this dissolve. You can listen to it again and bring that new situation. So it's kind of like you can use it however long you want. And then the session with me is a one-off, so I don't record them. Some people ask me if I record them. The reason I don't record the session is because we're going to transform you through that session.
Ooh,
So we don't want to go back to before the session. We want to stay in the transform space after the session, through the session. So we don't record it because it's already done. Like that's over, like don't hold on, let it be, and then if you want another session, you can book one. But yeah, it's really up to you.
So if they would buy the package, then is it okay for them to book several sessions at $100 each after they've purchased the package? Or would you have, okay.
wow.
All right, you guys.
Wow.
So
You
if
can
you
buy
want
as many sessions as you want.
Choose this, yeah. And you've really
Right.
got a lot of joy, you were saying, from doing sessions with people. What are some of those transformations that you've seen the results from? If
Oh,
you could
so
just
many.
I knew you were going to say that.
So many. The main thing is that a lot of times what really is healing for people is that they'll kind of tell me the gist of what's going on. And then as I blow the tobacco in, I'll start to feel under the surface
Oh, yes.
of the story.
Uh-huh.
And I'll start to identify, this is what I'm feeling is this emotion or this feeling. And they're like, yes. But like they couldn't access it before because it was repressed underneath their protection mechanism. So the fact that I can just say it out loud is just by itself super healing, because it's just like, okay, this is the
It's been
energetic.
acknowledged.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
once you have awareness on it, part of the healing is just your awareness on it. And then we
Nice.
can go in and heal relationships. I mean, we can do ancestral healing. We can do past life healing. We can do inner child healing. We can go back, I do work on healing the mother wound. So if there's, difficulties with the mother figure in your life and you're having problems moving past it, I do a lot of that work with people. So it really, I like it because I never know what's coming next. It's like the greatest job, right? Because I have no idea what's going to come forward in a session. I am just as surprised as the client. And oftentimes the messages that come through are also teaching me, because I'm opening to higher guidance. I'm opening to the ascended masters. And then that wisdom is coming through me. I'm the vocal piece for the high council in this session. So I'm just like, cool, I didn't know that. Thank you. Because I have my own stuff. I'm human.
Right.
I got my own stuff, but I also learn from these. So it's like, it's pretty cool. It's the coolest thing, really.
Love that.
I love it. It's great.
So you guys, I did put the link in the chat. If you are watching this on video, the link will be above this on the website, and it will also be in the caption on YouTube. So if you're looking for the special offer package, you'll find it around this video somewhere.
Yay.
Anything else that you have to add before we wrap this?
Any parting words for
Let's
us?
see if there's
Parting
any parting
words.
words. The council just wants you to remember that you came here to live an epic life.
Yeah.
You came here for the potentials available at this time of total chaos, dismantling of the old, and you came here to be one of the dreamers of the new. So you came here for this challenge, and yes, it feels vulnerable, it feels transparent, it feels like I don't know what to do, I'm not sure what to create. It feels a little awkward because we don't want to create from the old. We're creating from all new energy, and it can feel a little disorienting. But just remember, keep your eye on the horizon, and remember, you came here to experience this, to have the awakening of your higher consciousness, to bring in these higher frequencies to this planet, to enter yourself and your descendants. You came in for this. And so don't squander the opportunity by focusing too much on the anthill. It's in the perfect state it needs to be in for everything to manifest in your life for the fullest.
Yeah.
That was for me too.
Latte says beautiful. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you.
I feel it's sort of funny, I'm just being energetically sensitive, just watching the waves of the audience, watching the waves of how we sense. Because, after you did the meditation, it was just all peaceful.
Yeah.
Stillness.
Yeah, stillness. We need a little more stillness. You guys, thank you. We're not leaving yet. We've got Terri Britt in about 45 minutes, and me and Lianka are gonna jabber.
So we'll still be live. This is why we did live for you today and for the next 3 weeks. So, gosh, we are, again, just creating that sacred space that truly is a haven for anyone that's just willing to receive or open up and how they want to. So, hang out with us. We may take bio breaks and stuff like that, but hang out. We'll be here.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Do you want to walk her out and manage the beasts, since I think it's easier to go that way?
Yeah. Kerri, thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Wonderful
Big
having
hug.
you.
And
Yes.
hope to fire
Gosh.
Yeah, I hope you guys come on the
You're
23rd.
amazing. Oh my God. I'm so excited.
That was fun.
Yeah, is anybody else here in Austin?
know.
Want to meet up, fire walk with
Come walk on
us?
fire with me.
I'll just put that chair back for you, Lianka. Here, do you mind taking this in too, please? Thank you. All right, you guys. I'm just gonna sit here and monkey entertain you for a little bit. Bye, Kerri. Thank you. I wouldn't mind hearing what your biggest takeaway was from Kerri. Was there a big aha that you had that you want to share? Is there something that you feel inspired to share today? How, can we change each other today? I'd love if you type that in the chat. And I'm happy to get up a hypnotherapy thing in a little bit, so that we can maybe take about 20 minutes in a hypnotic state before Terri comes in, is what I hope to play with today. And you guys, watching the chat, come on, somebody chat with me. Let me admit Jane in Vermont. All right, Gia says she's still processing, feels a bit dizzy. Dizzy is always a fun feeling. It's funny, that kind of made me a little dizzy too, which is kind of not necessarily the state that I'm in with that. Who else had, who else? I'd love to hear from you guys. Joe said his biggest takeaway was drop the words and internalize. Beautiful. Something that Lianka and I play with is words are codes. And, sometimes I'll, even when my inner dialogue goes into the negative, I won't say it out loud. I will just go, this is my interesting take of view. I have that takeaway, right? Or this is my interesting point of view. I have that point of view. Because you got to think that internal dialogue, sometimes one, it's not even yours. And sometimes two, it's literally just something that you're used to. It's a construct from your past to slow you down. Some of my work with an access consciousness, they talked about distractor implants. And blame, shame, regret, and guilt is a distractor implant. So it's like sometimes when I would feel any of those feelings, towards another or towards myself, I would be like, well, that's just a distractor implant. That's an interesting point of view. I have that point of view. And all the things related to that, would I be willing to destroy and create? Recently, I've really worked with judgment, and sometimes it feels like somebody's taking an arrow and poop, just pointing an arrow into your heart with judgment. And I've really had to play with why does that judgment hurt so bad? And yesterday, when I shared about agreement and alignment, I was thinking, oftentimes when somebody judges you and it hurts so bad, it's really about, you aligning and agreeing with their point of view. And one of my biggies was when I was a teenager and somebody called me, he said, "You got chubby thighs." And I was like, and I got so twisted about that judgment that, man, I think I worked that little thigh master from Suzanne Summers for so many years. Because I didn't want to have chubby thighs, because I aligned and agreed with that judgment and that point of view. So, it's not that you have to go out and change the point of view. It's just somebody's interesting, stinky little thought, right? It's just their little stinky opinion. And, why buy into their opinion was kind of my point of view. So that's kind of, if you want to play with finding some constructs that we can destroy and uncreate, there's a couple ways. Every time you're judged, every time you're in blame, shame, regret, or guilt, every time when you have anger, fury, rage, and hate, that's often a distractor implant.
Talk a little bit about distractor implants. I think that's important.
Yeah. Well, they have been. Basically, they're just not real. Like, they are a construct for us to clear. And they're, like we talked about yesterday with Ambajam, that's the not me. Right.
Where'd they come from?
Right.
Right.
There's a lot of theories about
correct.
that, right?
Right. And a lot of pre-programming and a lot
entrainments from the past. But it can be, I think, as simple as like entrainments of lack from my, parents that grew up in the Depression,
Mm-hmm,
where they actually had real feelings of lack because they weren't fed,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I think that some of the thing, that holdback feeling that we have around lack often comes from some of those generational things,
Yes, very
right?
much
But I think
lineage.
that there's also possibly, as the woo might say, that there's some techies and
Yes,
that may be interfering with all of planet Earth
Mm-hmm,
so that we can't gain consciousness
mm-hmm.
and we can't move to the new Earth. What are your thoughts?
Well, one of the things that I remember, Jeneth, that we were playing with about 10 years ago was the idea that when it's a positive thought, those tend to come from ourselves. But when it's a negative,
No,
Okay,
okay, I'll
that's true.
question you on that,
That is
but
true.
you keep going.
But really what I want to focus on is that the negative all seem to be very much the same context. It'll be like, I don't have enough money, or I don't look good in my clothes, like, or I'm not enough, or somebody's gonna tap me on the shoulder and tell me that I'm a fraud, right? So a lot of and before, I feel like before the internet, it was a little more privately, you had this stuff going on in your head, and it wasn't as much played out.
You didn't realize that everyone else had the
That's
same
exactly
damn
what I'm trying
thought.
to say. That's what I'm trying to say. That's exactly what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say, but in a very nice way. And
But my point was, it's your conclusion
Yes.
and perception,
Yes.
whether it's positive or negative.
right, because there's no right and wrong. That's just a conclusion
Yeah,
and a construct. But
right.
But the thing is that if where did that come from? Like, why does everybody walk around with those same like
thoughts that they're
same
not good enough.
thoughts, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, if you're feeling that way and I'm feeling that way, well, who the hell feels great, right? Like, what's the
Let's
truth
see who wants to
here?
type in the chat
think
the
that's
chat
what
here
we-
and give us an idea of who you think it is. Who's doing that to us?
And and so anyway, that's kind of the present premise, and so that's when it really became really aware to me that these were not always our own.
Mm-hmm.
And as we talked about it more, and we have the internet now, there's a lot more theory and thought and practice, and more places and awarenesses of how we can clear those.
Mm-hmm.
But without having those deep conversations and just saying, "Hey, girl," like, really, just how are you doing? And you saying, "Well, I don't feel like I'm enough today."
Yeah.
How would we have known that? How could we have supported each other without not having these conversations or a space like this?
Yeah.
Which
Or actual therapy. Which,
right.
Yeah.
And does it have to be therapy, or does it have to be those the way in which we operated that before? And
Yeah.
is there other ways that we can kind of open
Why
ourselves
don't you
up
think
to
this
that?
is the way?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, real conversations on what it might be, what it could be, and more importantly, how to change it.
Mm-hmm. And we're talking about that in a little while anyway. I think one of the things that was coming up for me earlier was around comparison, like a comparison energy.
Mm-hmm.
And that in and of itself is a worthiness or a lack, if you will. And right now, I feel like there's, whether it's us putting together a podcast and looking at other podcasts to
Yeah.
kind of, model from, then there goes into the comparison, or whether.
And then, okay, so then is there an internal dialogue with that for you? Like, if you are looking and comparing, are you thinking, we're not good enough? I'm not good enough? Or,
Yeah, sometimes it not
so I'm not.
not that per se, but it's like, there's a worry if it's not necessarily about the podcast, but like sometimes there's, especially like in business, you're like, is my marketing,
Is it good enough?
Yes.
But that is an actual real question,
Mm-hmm.
because it could
Sure,
not
sure,
be
sure,
good
sure.
enough.
Right. That's a horrible
I
marketing
mean,
plan.
yeah. I mean,
But at the same time, when it starts to become things like, when it starts to become things of like, okay, how I looked on video, or when it starts to be, really taking like jabs at, physical appearance, or even some of the words that I say right now, and being really judgy of myself, then I think then it starts to become a place of worthiness, or
Yeah,
a
agreed.
place of holding lack.
Right.
And what would it take for us to be able to feel that we could just share and not have to have those judgments, or places where we would worry about how we're being received? I mean, not everyone's going to love what we're saying, right?
Right.
And that's okay too. But but creating that space or having that conversation. And anyway, I just feel like that there's a lot of places where there's comparison. I just happened to bring out the podcast as one, right? Because we were working on it so much.
So much. Worthiness is not my favorite conversation, but I felt like it had to be in here. I felt like changing narratives and worthiness had to be in here, because if we didn't have a day on that, it would have come up later, then now we can say, this might come back to worthiness. You might want to listen to these 2 audios today, but I don't love this conversation that much, because I feel like I've worked on it all my life, and I feel like for me, I might have a little bit of unworthiness still residing, but I'm nearly done. But I know what it was like when I really felt not worthy. It's, and even to my kids. I mean, I felt that, my older son, who read and got straight A's and is really well read, I felt like, I wasn't good enough for him. And it was judgment upon me. And
Your
maybe
own
a judgment upon this work that I do even, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's another, right? That's another thing too. Having that, that notion of how others are going to receive, and can we just let that fall by the wayside in the same way that we just talked about, like
that's just judgment. It's
Yeah.
just a stinky fart in my face. That's the best way for me to describe judgment, right? It's like this stinky fart that's like messing up my air. And you know what? And I can get out of it by simply being in the energy space and consciousness of, he has an interesting point of view, and that is his point of view. It has nothing to do with me.
Right.
It's not for me to like reshape myself and fit in his box. In fact, just the fact that he judges like that is his own problem.
Right.
Right.
So when and the reason why you're saying that is because we are now learning that that when people have judgment of whatever it is, that's their own mirrors. That is them reflecting back on something else, and them having that judgment upon everything. So when we were just talking to Kerri, she really brought up a good example with her son, how like when she's in the dealing with the ant pile, and she's right in there, and she has her judgments of where she thinks that she should have how she should have mothered and where he should be. But then when she was able to step back and expand and have the viewpoint of seeing everything as her highest potential would have it, then it all made sense for him to be even closer in her realm.
I know.
So that he can help her and be right by her side as another teacher, and is now in the program, right? So that is one of those ways in which that sometimes it's just like we don't realize what a gift that is too, to even have someone else's judgment.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah.
And we did say that we were going to talk a lot about, kind of recapping. And does anyone have any kind of thoughts on, what Kerri shared there? If
I asked.
I figured you would.
Yeah. And do you want to talk about kind of what's going to happen next while we're here?
I do.
Yeah.
Good.
No, you go.
Okay, so we've got Terri Britt on next, and she's going to be talking about worthiness. And she used to be, she was Miss USA. So gosh, wouldn't you even think
She's
that
a neat person.
she's super cool, really cool, and very down to earth. So when you are part of pageants, wouldn't you say that that is one of the highest forms of
Judgment?
Yes,
I
you
know,
have
my gosh.
judges who are actually judging you based upon these very social.
All these criteria,
Yes.
right? Every criteria, technically,
right.
right? So you have to be perfect in every single one, including body,
And
especially back in the day,
right.
Yeah.
And so to have her come and talk to us about worthiness is quite
I think
profound.
that's cool.
Yeah,
absolutely.
because she would have experienced it in a way that, gosh, with all of America watching her experience that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
all of the America, like Miss USA.
I know. I can't wait to talk with her.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And tomorrow we've got Masami Covey, who's going to talk to us about cycles, and just in general, moon cycles. And then we're going to go a little bit into probably perimenopausal and cycles throughout the female cycles.
And she also
she's a functional nutritionist.
and she does plant medicine as well.
Yes, she does everything. She
Gotcha.
also channels and does.
Oh, that's right. That's
absolutely.
right. Absolutely.
So she's phenomenal. I had her on my last show and she just blew my mind. I was like, oh my gosh, you're like my newest best friend.
Oh yeah, you did say something about it. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
So I cannot wait for you.
And then we've got Maria on after her.
She
That's
also channels and she talks about she helps to bring activation through. She does a wealth activation, so really stepping into that
potential,
correct?
Right.
Yeah, of being able to be on the frequency of wealth. And sometimes you don't really know where. I know for myself, sometimes I don't even know where I'm creating those blocks, or that I am on. I mean, I know that wealth is here, and sometimes I'm over here, and have been there, and I could see that. Or there's been times in my life and cycles where wealth is coming very easily for me,
right?
And then I'll pivot, and it's like elusive, right? So those are different ways in which you can actually learn from those. All of these things that we have, all of it is just information. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and if you haven't noticed, we're kind of taking you through a journey here. Yesterday, we talked about your knower within, and Amajam took you through how to unearth your not me, right? Energy, so that you knew the difference. And then today, we've kind of gone into changing those past narratives and really that worthiness within. And then tomorrow, we'll leap off with really honoring the present moment and the cycles and the moon cycles of your life, as well as, really amping up abundance and wealth and activating your potential. So, and then come tomorrow, we'll talk about Thursday. One day at a time here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and then the entire series, this is a big undertaking to stay here and do a live, all day with you, but we're excited to do it because we realize that for humanity, we're in a really amazing time in humanity's history where we are those. If you're on the line, you're one of the people that are really helping to anchor in the new earth. Yes. And we realize that people can receive differently. And I said this yesterday, so for people who had missed it, the reason why we have these various different speakers and the diversity is because while I may talk about Akashic Records, and then we may have another, her name is slipping me right now. She'll talk about Akashic Records, but what you may receive in the way that we lay out the information may be different, and some of it may land for you, and some of it may not.
Yeah.
And the important thing is that you find, and you may reject it all, or you may be open-minded,
to all of it,
right? And so the more important thing is just being able to facilitate that space where you would have that to change because, hey, we're doing this together, right? We're all in.
Yeah.
All of us. I mean, every one of you, call up your friends right now, tell them get on the thing because you want to create the new earth. But
Yeah, I feel like, I'm personally doing this for, yes, I want to bring everyone in the audience, but I'm also personally doing this because every time I do these, I grow,
yeah.
and every time I grow, I have more joy and glory even,
Yeah.
right? And it just, and I learn so, so much every single time. And I mean, you guys, I've really curated this event where I want people that are spectacular. I don't want like just your everyday, mom and dad to bore us. I mean, they have insights, yes, and I'm willing to listen, but I really feel like I want people that, been there, walked through the fire like Kerri. I mean, literally she walked through the fire, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Gia says, excited for tomorrow's subject, but I am unsure if I can make the live.
Yeah. We've enjoyed having you and enjoyed having you comment.
Happy anniversary.
Yeah. Happy anniversary.
Yeah.
We'll have you on
yeah.
replay. We'll be there.
Yeah, no, definitely. Are we thumbs
Actually-
upping or is somebody?
Oh, yeah.
We double thumbs up and it made
Some-
fireworks, man.
Someone is-
Ooh, let's do that more often. I don't know how that happened, but that's awesome.
So, for Gia, so if you want to write into the chat or just send us an email at team@hothustle.com, we can also facilitate a question for you. So thank you for interacting. And that goes for anyone, right? So again, if you have a burning question or a desire or just want to share something, some insight that you received today and with the speakers or on replay, let us know. We want to hear about it. We want to know who else you'd like to have on the show in the future. We're not going away. Yay. Yeah. And then also we want it to be very much a safe space for you. So please let us know. Let us know what you're feeling, what you're thinking, what are your takeaways.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the lounge for a minute?
Yeah.
So you guys, so yes, you can buy all the audios of this event, but I also have something that's even cooler.
We have something.
Sorry, old habits die hard, man.
So she had when I met her, she was running a summit, very successful. And that's how I went to go see you at a live event. And then you were talking about your summit, and that's how I listened in, and I was like, oh, she's doing good. She's got some stuff planned, and it's been an interesting, amazing ride to have joined you on this journey. And because of all the different people that you've talked with, you've interviewed, I mean, on all the subjects, all The Secret, the people from The Secret. And I'm only saying this because there's a wealth of knowledge and of, lots of time that has been put into lots of the content that we're going to talk about and it's not just lounge.
From these interviews. I've also done like every single course in Access Consciousness and studied with Joe Dispenza and studied with Steve G. Jones for hypnotherapy. And so we both have done a lot
of journey work.
Yeah, of journey work. Really self-discovery so that we can talk intelligently and ask great questions of these guests too.
And facilitate you in a private lounge where we will be with you monthly.
Yeah, so let's scroll on down to, so basically here's the offer. If I could read this. Once I can read this. So basically, if you join now, and so kind of the vision after these 3 weeks is we're going to keep going. We're not going to do it as intense, not twice a day, but we're going to keep going where we're going to have a guest probably twice a week is what we're thinking, maybe once a week to start after we need a little breather after this. But one of the things that you get is priority access to ask questions on the stream. As the stream grows, this will probably be more important than it is right now, but you'll have priority access. Clearly some speakers are more popular than others. You also, if you do like to get the speaker packages, and I've tried my best to just make them absolutely good.
Yeah.
I've listened to a lot of them. And so you get 10% off that. You also will get the audios and videos from these calls. Some of them will stay live and up. We're going to have a podcast component to this in the future. But if you want to make sure you've got everything, then you've got all of that. And you will continue to get all of that. I made this offer last November in my Creator Mastermind Haven, and it's always that way. This is the same dealio. You're also going to get a monthly reading with Leonka, and she specifically deals with clearing out the gunk, clearing out the constructs.
We go into past life regression. We talk about a lot of the times I find that there are blocks and lineages and your soul has a journey that wants to walk through, and there are a lot of times that they will have put either a block or a lesson in place that we actually sometimes can't even pinpoint in our current lives.
Yeah.
So this is very unique work that we will do, so that way you can catapult and straight into those things that you most want to desire to create here on earth, what you're called to do, right? This is the reason why we're here.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you're also going to get a session with me, and I do access consciousness and NLP and hypnotherapy, and it's really about vision. It's like creating your future. Like we talked a little bit about with Kerri, and my question specifically is, how do I get my kids to have vision, right? I have ways, but so you'll have an NLP kind of session with me. I'll also work with all the guests to get you what you need as far as that. And then lastly, we have some bonuses here. You'll have access to all the archives. So even if it's a month-to-month program. So even if you just, want all the archives,
that already is definitely well placed for itself, right? Yeah. And let's say that you wanted to do one of the programs for the speakers this time around, you get the 10% off of any of the programs that any of the speakers.
And with it, each quarter, we're gonna do
this is pretty juicy
single reading with members. We're hoping, that lots of you will join, but that'll be really, really cool. And lastly, if you want more than one session,
private
then you get 50% off of our actual one-on-one session price.
Yeah.
So some real juicy stuff during the event. If you join before March 22nd, it's only $29 a month. Next is going to go up to $39, and then it'll just keep incrementally going up. I'm happy to answer any questions, but this is the page, and I will put it in the chat for you guys.
Yay, and thank you for those who've already been signing up.
Yes, we have had a few.
Whoop, whoop. We are going to really take you deep and deep dive. This is something that's been burning within us.
Monthly therapy.
Yeah, woo! And we will, but there's going to be some significant changes. And who doesn't want to play with people who are, like Kerri said, you want to surround yourself with that community because we are, we are the representation of the 5 people that we hang around most, right? So she likes to change she surrounds herself with people that are high vibing, that are doing those things. And that's what we're going to create here, or what we've created here for you. So those would be people that are also supporting you. You can talk, share your, is there a podcast that you want to create? Is there a message? Are you a healer or a coach who wants to get their, information out to the world, but you just don't really know how?
Yeah.
Those are the things that we have sludged through, if you will. And we've done it at like ridiculous speeds because we have navigated this and we've learned from the best of the best marketing and and all of it, really.
Technically, if you want a one-on-one session for specifically marketing,
Sure.
you might want to actually get a package with me,
Right.
though.
But what I'm trying to say is that this is a space where you can share some of those things that you most want to desire or want to create. You desire to create, and we help to facilitate those things. Really, because we help to, either remove those blockages, lots of different ways that we do that. But, come to us, let us know what those questions are, because we want to support you. And we want to do it in this way. Like, you can do all those like business courses and all that jazz, but
when you create from the energy,
correct,
it's so much different.
It is different. And this is you.
Yes, absolutely. All right, you guys. Ruben said, "Great job, guys."
Thank you.
Thank you. We've been, if you've seen my other stuff, like I know Diane is on the line and she's watched my journey from the baby phases and just kind of hung out with me all this time, even when I took a total sabbatical. Diane, thank you so much for continuing to follow my journey. But some of it was real off the beat rogue along the way.
Well, that's what makes it fun, and that's what makes it a journey,
I know,
right?
right? And I mean, now you get to see all this evolution, and it's kind of awesome.
Yeah, it's
I feel like and now I feel
grow with us. Let's go. Yeah.
I had a joke with Leonka, and I was like, when we're going to get this studio set up and people are going to be like, where have you been all my life? And I'm going to go, we were stuck too.
She's not joking.
No, not it. And if you were on yesterday, you heard a little bit about my leg, and I literally could not walk from the kitchen table to the bathroom for almost 6 months. I was like on crutches.
You're really stuck.
Yeah, I was not only stuck in my physical, I was really stuck in my business too, because I was like, I'm done doing interviews, and I started doing Amazon FBA. I made a kind of tongue-in-cheek comment to Ambajam yesterday, and I was like, bye-bye puppy products, when she was like, talking about me getting more aligned. But yeah, I mean, every level that you're at, sometimes you just get a little off your true north. And apparently I got way off my true north and my compass for a little while, but I'm back. So, and now I actually feel like, this is easy and light and more fun and spacious like that. So, Ruben said, you guys keep growing. We'll be here for that.
Cool,
Thank you
man.
for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's
Because
an
we'll grow together now.
Yeah,
Right.
for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's 10 till. Let's see if Terri has joined the line yet. Does not look like she has. Did you guys? So what I think might be fun, and when you sign up for the event, at the end of the event, I was going to do a single hypnosis session for everyone. But I'm kind of thinking it might be fun now that we talked about, like, she had a breathing suggestion with Kerri. It might be really fun to do one on abundance.
Oh, yes.
Or maybe worthiness. I don't know if I want to use that word, worth.
Ooh.
Profits and worth or something.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
You guys let us
And
know.
then within it, we could do a hypnotic suggestion,
Yep.
where they could have, one of my hypnotic suggestions is the okay sign. But we could we could figure out a hypnotic suggestion for worth and profits or
Yeah.
something like that.
Right. So because we believe that words are codes, how does the energetics around worth and profits, how is that landing for y'all?
Well, and so, I actually feel the frequency of abundance isn't really right.
Right.
Joe said prosperity, but that doesn't feel exactly
But
like for me.
And also, words are codes for you.
Yeah.
How you define your things, how that energetically lands within you and your body, that's your coding. So it could be different, but I'm just curious. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut. Yeah.
Yeah. We can play with it, but let's as a group, maybe we figure out what that session would be about. We can keep talking about it during these little, times
Mini breaks,
between, but these mini breaks. Talking about mini break, we should talk a little bit about our partners.
Yeah.
And I will put them in the bottom of the email, but we have 2 partners that have partnered with us, and we're having By Winona, the founder of By Winona, on next week. And the reason I was looking into this whole perimenopausal stuff is because I started having intrusive thoughts, and all these works and meditation and being clear and stuff like that. When I have intrusive thoughts that are really intrusive, like people dying and stuff, like a knife falling off the kitchen table onto a
Really?
dog and stuff,
Wow.
and I was like, this is talk about not me.
Yeah.
I knew it was not me, and been working with that, but I felt that the shifting, and I have started taking a DHEA, which is supposed to balance hormones, and I went to an acupuncturist to balance my hormones, and that was the first step that I took on this. And those intrusive thoughts are, well, a whole lot less. I'll still occasionally have them. But that was one of the reasons I really started to dive into that work and look at that. So, if you had kind of questioned, the mix of that and why I'm bringing it in, that's why I'm wanted to bring it in. I feel like if it helps me, it helps you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And we also have Michael Hyatt. He's doing a launch called Full Focus. So more to come on that. I did his program years and years ago. It was something called Life something. It wasn't called Full Focus, and it was really transformative. You went through like a 12-part project on the book.
We've got a chorus up here. It's like a
doing?
dog choir.
I know,
In the
yeah.
background.
You may not
It's
hear
okay.
it on our mics, but yeah, I don't know. They don't usually go nutty like that, but apparently somebody dropped off a package or something.
Yeah, it's gotta let us know, right?
Oh, the bow. Oh, you guys, my daughter
Ah,
this Friday is turning 18 years old, and we bought her a car. Hopefully she's not watching this.
oh,
I
good.
don't
You
think
just
she will.
joined the lounge. I'm excited to play with you.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you,
Diane.
Thank you, Diane.
Yeah, she is turning 18 on Friday. We bought her a car from Carvana, and I bought a huge bow to go on it from Amazon. But what we've decided to do is on Thursday night, we're driving her down to South Austin, where they have a Carvana vending machine.
Okay, so Carvana needs to be a partner of ours now.
Right? And basically she'll get this coin to put in the Carvana vending machine, and the car will drive down. I guess somebody actually drives it down.
No, it's a machine.
It is a vending machine.
Yes.
So it'll be like, woo, here's your car. So we've decided my husband was gonna
Like a candy,
door
like a candy
DoorDash
bar.
it. He was gonna DoorDash it, he said. But instead of having it driven to our home, we're actually gonna go down and have her have the experience for her birthday. So I will let you know more about that next week.
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
How fun. Well,
Yeah.
happy birthday to your baby.
Thank
Wow.
you. Thanks, Diane. So we have a few people in the lounge already. And when we have a list, I think probably middle
Next week?
yeah,
Yeah.
we'll probably give surprises and hurrahs to some of the people
Yay.
that are in
Yeah, it's
the
a party.
lounge. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. We're hoping to actually every few months send something to you guys too. I've got lots of books and things that could
Yeah.
use an extra life.
So next, so the first month we'll be giving the digital downloads as the bonuses. There's a ton of just great content there. And then next month we'll be giving away, you'll be signing them, hard copies of the book that Jeneth was a co-contributor in. Whoa, I just dropped my whole mic. And
So you're gonna get this one. So I have my Seven Dragons book,
that's a fun one.
and I have
So each month
I
you'll
have
get different.
Falling in Stilettos, and then I have this collaborative book. So this one's going to go out first.
Yay.
So I think if they're the second month, then they get an actual
Hard copy.
book
We'll
in the
ship it to you.
mail.
Yep.
Here's Terri. All right, let's go ahead and bring her on.
Thanks for hanging out, y'all.
Yeah, yeah. I was going to say
This is fun.
absolutely. I'm happy to do so. All right, Terri.
Hi.
Unmute yourself and come on the line. We'd love to. There
Hey,
you are.
hey, girls.
Hey. So we're already full on live because we've been live since about 2
hours
hours
ago.
Yep, yep. So we've got
How are you
people
holding
hanging out,
up?
coming in and joining and dropping off and coming back. And so we're just having a party here.
Yeah,
Oh, yay. I love that. I love that. I'm so
We
happy
have-
to be here.
we have lots of questions for you. And
Oh, boy.
we've been talking you up, man. We were just saying, Terri, the former USA, she
Miss USA.
Miss USA,
Yes.
sorry, said it
That's
correctly.
okay.
We're like, yeah, I mean, I guess doing pageants like that, I mean, you from a little child, you're set up as just to be judged. I mean, literally, you have judges, and then everyone judges every single aspect about you. So we thought maybe I have to start the recording, but we thought maybe we'd start the conversation there. Let me
Yeah, like
start
with
the
all
recording.
eyes on you. So
Here we go. Can you just,
Yeah. go ahead.
everyone take a breath so we can officially do a start of the recording. Okay, you guys, hello everyone and welcome. I'm Jeneth Blackert and this is Leonka Reyna. This is The Hot Hustle. Today we're talking with Miss USA Terri Britt, and I just started off saying, man, girl, when you were a teenager in pageants, you must have been faced with judgment on every single level, not only from peers, but also from the entire world and from, actual judges.
Right.
Right?
Judges, right? So it's
They are
amazing.
there to do judging.
You know, it was interesting because
Fairness. It's like judging all of the, personal things of you. And so amazing that you're talking to us today about worthiness. Wow.
Yes.
Yes.
Wow.
Talk about a life journey.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like right in there.
Yeah, and I did not find my worthiness in the pageants. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
It was interesting because when I was about in the 6th grade, my sister was in the 5th. We both entered Little Miss Cabot, our town of 4,000 people. My mother had been Miss West Tennessee Strawberry Queen. And so it was kind of in our blood to think that was cool. Now, for me, going in that pageant, it wasn't about, oh, I got to win the pageant. It was, I get to be on stage because I always loved performing. Well, my sister won that pageant. And I remember this girl coming up to me at school and was just so hateful, like, "Oh, you always win everything. Well, I guess you didn't win this, did you?" And I remember it just stabbing me a little bit, going, "Oh, that doesn't feel good." It's like it wasn't about me beating my sister, but for her, she loved that my sister beat me.
Oh,
Yeah, isn't that awful? And so
yeah.
I remember it like it was yesterday, but at the same time, at that time, I didn't understand that, that I was in a way having a battle within myself of here, let me shine my light, but no, I better not. Right.
Hmm.
So I went into a few more pageants, and again, it was always being on stage. Well, I was in my freshman year of college. I went into the Miss Arkansas USA pageant. I made top 5. My sorority sister won, which was really cool.
Wow.
I know, she was really cool. I didn't care. I was looking for a break. Again, it was not about, oh, I need to win Miss Arkansas. I don't think it was ever really about that for me. It was, I want a break. I want something different. In school, in college, I always felt like I am supposed to move to Los Angeles. I mean, seriously, guys, I sent off information from UCLA when I was a freshman in college because I knew I was supposed to be in LA and I had never even been there, but I knew it. I could feel it in my
Yes.
bones.
Yes.
So and I send off the information. Well, what do they say? You have to have so many years of foreign language and the money and everything. And here I was, this little girl in Arkansas going to a small college. My parents didn't have the money. I didn't have the foreign language. So I just kind of felt hopeless. I was like, oh, this is never going to happen. So when I didn't win Miss Arkansas, I was like, that's it. I'm never doing a pageant again. Well, in my second semester of my sophomore year of college, I was really, really miserable. Now, here's the interesting thing. I had followed my boyfriend to a school that didn't have a broadcasting department, and yet I wanted to be the next Barbara Walters.
Oh, yeah, I get
Now,
it. I get
talk
it.
about your actions not matching your dreams. I mean, it was like, okay, we're way down here, and here I am up here, and wanting this, but I can't have it because I'm way down here in my energy. So I would find myself getting angry. I was like looking for something to fill me up. The pageants never did. And I didn't, I mean, I got confidence. I mean, there's a difference between confidence and worthiness. Confidence is like, okay, I can go out on stage, I can speak, I can do this, but worthiness is, can I really receive? Can I really just be me? Right? There's a big difference. And I think our society gets that confused. So I
Mhm.
was confident. I looked really confident on the outside, but on the inside, I didn't feel real worthy of love. And that's why I followed my boyfriend to the college. Well, I'll never forget, I was miserable and we were broken up for a short moment. So I was talking to my friend on the phone one day before I was going back to school. It was the second semester of my sophomore year, and I hate school. I don't want to go. I'm just venting. He said, "Well, so don't go." I said, "Well, I have to." And he said, "Says who?"
Uh-huh.
And it was like,
Oh.
okay, wow. I mean, it was so crazy the way I felt. It was this knowingness. So I knew I had to leave school. So I go home. I mean, I go back into my mom and dad. They're in the other room. And I said, I got to leave school. I can't do this anymore. I'm miserable. I mean, literally just months prior, I had put my fist in my boyfriend's window or tried to. It was a little bit higher than I was. So I went to hit it. Didn't go through, thankfully. But that's how angry I was, right? He wasn't loving me the way I wanted to be loved. So I was always looking for something to fill me up, to make me feel loved. Well, I left school, and let me tell you, immediately everything opened up. My apartment rented without any effort. I moved
Ah,
home. I got a job. how you get into that divine flow? Well, that's what happened. And a few months later, the Miss Arkansas who had crowned the girl the year prior comes into where I'm selling shoes. She doesn't recognize me. I now have short brown hair and I'd lost weight because I wasn't eating college food. And I introduced myself to her and she said, "Are you going to be in the pageant?" I said, "No." I said, "I was looking for a break and I want to get into television." And she says,
mhm.
"Oh, well, there's a production company out of Miami who just bought the Miss Arkansas franchise. They do a lot of commercials and stuff. It might mean a break." So, of course, my antenna went.
Yes. Yes.
So I was listening to my intuition. I go home, tell my mom, she makes my dress. I enter Miss Arkansas and I win. It was like boom, boom. That was crazy.
It
That's
was aligned, huh?
amazing.
Yeah, it was crazy. So here's the crazier part. 2 weeks later, I'm sent to Miss USA. I mean, all the girls in the pageant have months to prepare. I have 2 weeks.
Oh
So
gosh.
because they had just purchased the pageant, right? So there'd been no prep time. I mean, I don't even know what I'm doing. So I go in to Miss USA in Biloxi, Mississippi. Next thing I know, I make it to the top 12, the
Wow.
part that you see on TV,
Yes, yes.
right? And I am Southern, you guys. I'm talking like this. Uh, and one of the funniest moments of the whole pageant is when Bob Barker said, "So what do you do in Cabot, Arkansas, population 4,000 on a Saturday night?" And I said, "Well, Bob, in the winter we stay at home, but in the summer we go down to the Tasty Freeze. My friend has a truck. We sit on the back of his truck. The guy, he plays the banjo, and the guys drink a little beer and dip a little skull. It's a real good time."
That's
And then
awesome.
I won.
Wow.
Well, because you were authentic. That's so
But you
fun.
know what's so interesting? I was authentic, and that was amazing because I learned an incredible lesson from that. I learned that, when you listen to your heart and you stand in your truth, which is I listened to my heart, I left school. I stood in my truth on that stage and talked about drinking beer and dipping skull, and then a miracle showed up. I won. But what was really interesting is that night, in the moment of winning, I feel, first off, of course, I'm like, and my reaction still talked about to this day. But then I felt this sense of emptiness. And I thought, is this it? Because here I'd been looking my whole life for love to fill me up, right?
Mm.
Please fill me up. Make me feel loved, make me feel nurtured, make me feel supported. And I did not feel it. So immediately I start looking into the crowd where my boyfriend is sitting, and we had gotten back together. And I'm seeing him up there, where I know he is, it's a huge coliseum. And then I start feeling guilty because I know I'm about to be sent to New York and he's going to be left behind in Arkansas. So I'm feeling guilty about receiving this crown. It's like, you're given this amazing gift, Terri. You're given this. And yet I couldn't receive it, too, so much to the point that when we, that night after the festivities, we sat in my hotel room with my mom and dad and my boyfriend, and I actually considered giving the crown back.
Wow.
Mhm. So, I learned very early on that if you let your light shine, you are going to be responsible for people's pain, right? I that girl that was mean to me, she was in essence saying to me when my sister won that pageant from years prior that you're the problem, you're the reason I feel lack, right?
Mm.
And I'm so glad you didn't win. And then, with my family lived by the unwritten rule that most families live by, meaning you put yourself on the back burner to take care of everyone else. My parents took care of my sister and me, then each other, and then themselves last. So what I learned from watching them is love means you must deny yourself, and it is not okay to receive. It's
Mhm.
not okay to let your light shine. So there was all of this emotional stuff that went with Miss USA. I mean, it was an amazing opportunity. I'm forever grateful, but it didn't fill me up. You see our world right now, and everybody is on the hamster wheel because they're looking for that love. They're looking for that fulfillment. And the more they sit on that hamster wheel or race on the hamster wheel, the
Mhm.
less they feel good about themselves. They feel like, well, they may feel confident, but they don't really feel worthy. They don't feel like I can stop. I can breathe. I can just be me. I can follow my heart, and abundance will show up. And that was the seed that Miss USA planted, but it did not take hold immediately. It took a long time.
I bet it did. I remember what it was like to be 20.
Oh yeah, and then in the television industry, because I ended up getting to Los Angeles. Now, this is what's so interesting. My intention had always been to move to California and get to Los Angeles. And I went into the pageants for that, and it took me a long way around to get there, but I did make it to LA, which is so interesting because sometimes when we set an intention of what we want to create, we get impatient and we want it right now, right? We think it's going to be this way.
You don't know
But if
anything
we'll
about
just yeah,
that.
I know, right? And so if we can just be in the space of going, I'm going to be on my divine journey. And I didn't know this back then, right? I can say 20, hindsight is 2020 in this situation, but I can look back on it and go, wow, I was being guided so beautifully to really step on my life mission, to my life path, because I do talk about worthiness. I do talk about that in that night of winning Miss USA, I won the crown, but I didn't claim it. I didn't feel worthy of receiving it just for being me. I had guilt and shame around it because I thought I was hurting people around me. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And it doesn't to me feel that crazy to hear
I
you say,
know.
No,
yeah.
don't you think that's pretty typical of almost anybody,
Yes.
especially at that age that hasn't done personal development work? Many of them
Mhm.
haven't by that time in their life. And I think that that is
You think they
pretty,
don't teach this in school?
nope, they just don't teach it in
They
school.
need to be. They need to be.
I was
And
just
you know
saying,
what's, go
what,
ahead, go ahead.
I
What
was
I've
saying,
been,
you said go ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead. I'm shutting up. Okay, go ahead.
I was saying earlier that now I can't even remember what I was saying. I don't know. You go ahead.
So anyway, so for years I've worked with women, and for the first part of my journey, it was moms, right? And
Yeah.
moms with kids of different ages. So what I have seen that if you're single and you're doing your own thing, it's a little bit easier to receive. But as soon as you get into that mama mode, or you get into feeling like you have to take care of everyone else, it really gets tightened. I used to have a coaching client who was a very, 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 very successful higher up woman in the television industry. When she left to have become a mom, it was like, where did that person go for her? Because
Mhm.
she slid right into feeling like, well, I have to deny myself. I have to take care of everyone else. I have to do what I need to do. And I saw it really take a toll on her. It took a toll on her emotionally, physically, mentally, everything. So what I see is that when we love somebody or when we're wanting to have a relationship, this really shows up. Like, even over the years, I was married for 17 years and my husband died. That was Steve. And now I've been married for 15 years with my husband, Charlie. And with both of them, it was really easy to slide into what I saw my family do, and that was to deny myself in the relationship. And let me tell you guys, I've been doing this for 25 years, and I still have moments of sliding in and feeling like I need to deny myself so that you feel loved. But at my core, what I'm really wanting is for you to love me in return, because that's what we're all seeking. But we can't find it out here, right? We have to find it in here. So it's so easy, even if we're doing the spiritual work, to slide back in to those old dynamics of being loving means you must deny yourself. And then the way that translates into our world, it translates into I can't receive for being me. Because when we learn as a child, I have to deny myself, then we start pleasing our parents, right? We start pleasing them and trying to win their love and approval, then our teachers. And what we start reinforcing is I can't receive for being me. So now we're in a state of unworthiness. Our worthiness quotient is low. And what your worthiness quotient is how open you are to receiving love, nurturing, and support simply for being you. And we learn in our families to live in a low worthiness quotient. Now, isn't that interesting when you think about that? If your parents were the typical parents and they denied themselves doing everything for you, you'd think, oh, well, I should feel really worthy because my parents took care of me so much. That's not what happens. You start looking at your parents and you start ingraining in your whole system that love means you must deny yourself. And then that translates into I can't receive for being me. So then we get on this perpetual hamster wheel of trying to prove our worth. And
Hmm.
then we never feel loved and fulfilled, just like what happened for me as Miss USA.
Yeah. One time, my dad used to like kind of pat me on the leg and
Mhm.
say, "I'm so proud of you."
Mhm.
And I didn't notice until after he passed how much I was like trying to do things for his approval.
Absolutely.
It's like, so I lived most of my life trying to get the approval of my father.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's just like, and you're like, wait a second.
Mhm.
Where is my voice in that? I watched The Housewives of Beverly Hills, and in their promo lately, Kyle was saying, um, I don't need anybody's approval, or something to that. I make my own choices. And I
Right.
just thought, even though it was harsh with her saying that to her husband, I thought, wow, what a statement to make to somebody.
Absolutely.
You know,
And I think
she's
so
like,
many
I
of us
will if I
already.
want to. Like, I don't need your approval, right? And I just thought, what a great example for us
And I
to
think it's easy to say that, but we have to know it too.
yeah.
We have to know it at our core. I mean, we have been hearing enough self-help stuff now over the years that, love yourself and, stop trying to win everybody else's love, quit being the pleaser. But if we don't know it in our core, if we haven't released those deep-seated beliefs that say, I'm not enough, I'm not worthy, I'm the problem, I'm bad, then what we do is we continue to internalize that unworthiness, even though on the outside I'm saying I don't need anyone's approval. I mean, have you ever done that? I've done that.
Totally. Everybody's
Yes.
done that.
Everybody does that. So we have to know it on the inside. And what I've seen, I'm like you, when I was growing up, my dad was God in the home. I mean, he was the provider, he was the one out in the world. And so it was really based on what's going to help us survive, right? So I saw him as having more fun. My mom was kind of, stressed out, denying herself completely. So I'm like, I'm not going to be like my mom. I want to be like my dad. So I started acting like my dad, and that's when really adapted to his energetic field in the sense of I got to go out there, I got to push, I got to shove, I got to prove my worth, right? I've got to win at life. I took on that male energy, but even though I won so many things, I didn't feel loved. I didn't feel nurtured, and I definitely didn't feel receptive. If I did win an accolade or an award in school, which I did all the time, I graduated second in my class. I was president of this, president of that, went to college on a scholarship, was on the dean's list. I did all of that, but none of it made me feel loved, and I couldn't receive it. It's like it would come, and instead of celebrating a beautiful win like that, which we do want to have goals. We want to have fun things that happen in our life because that's maybe part of our path. But instead, it was like, okay, I got it. Now what's next? It was this perpetual hamster wheel of trying to fill myself up. And what's been interesting is, when I became a wife and mom, I realized that I was putting my rules onto my children about you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to perform. And I found myself being a controlling, angry witch. Okay. And that's when I saw my dad die and I realized, wow, he has no forgiveness of himself. He'd lost everything in bankruptcy and he'd become an alcoholic. And I realized I'm a lot like him. I'm a lot like my dad. So I knew I was perpetuating a cycle of stress and struggle for my family of trying to win love and approval,
Yes.
trying to win at life. And I realized then, my dad who had been my hero, I realized that maybe daddy's way is not the right way, right? And I understand what you were saying about seeking his approval because that was translating into every area of my life. And even when I gave up myself to follow my boyfriend to college, that's what I was really doing. I was kind of handing the baton from my dad over to my boyfriend and seeking his approval,
Yeah.
right? So for me, when I realized I was perpetuating a cycle for my family, my therapist said, "You're wound really tight. You need to get into meditation." Because I
That's how I
was.
got into meditation almost.
Really? Did
Yeah,
your therapist tell you to?
a therapist just said, you should just breathe and take 10 deep breaths every single morning. Because talk about type A, right?
Oh my gosh,
That
me
was,
too.
and I started doing yoga after that. And then this was like 1999. I remember the year because I was like so crazy, and I was
Uh-huh.
crazy about the turn of Y2K even.
Yeah.
Um, I was neurotic
Mhm.
and I would go to yoga. Like that was my path instead of meditation because I'd still get exercise in,
Mhm.
it helped my body.
Yeah.
could justify it more than the 10 breaths.
Funny.
And then during Shavasana, you know, we'd lay there in Shavasana and I'd be like, all right, I don't have time for this.
Wow.
But basically, I didn't want to meet myself, and I was like dueling, right? I was like, all right, Jeneth, let's fight. So as soon
Right.
as I would quiet down, there's all this fight in my world. So
Yeah, I understand that. And that
yeah.
fight is, you know what hit me one day is my late husband was a former Marine who went to Vietnam. He was at the end of Vietnam. So that takes a lot of courage, right? I mean, he was drafted and he had to go, but it took a lot of courage. But I realized one day when I had started my journey of healing, and he wouldn't do it at first, that it took more courage to go within and heal than it pretty much does anything, because you have to be willing to look at your crap. And one of the things that I really started discovering is I learned that I had a belief that I was bad. Okay. And one of the ways that I always revealed that to people or showed it on the outside world is I never allowed myself to be wrong. No, I had to look at that, right? And go, why do I always need to be right? And it was, when I finally looked, it was because you feel so wrong on the inside. And that was a big aha,
It's huge.
right? That was a big aha. And a lot of times we carry that energy. For instance, so when I got into meditation, I went into an energy school. So I started learning about energy. And that's how I got on this journey of being an energy worker, an intuitive healer, and spiritual coach. Yay. So I've been doing that for 25 years. But early on, my mother's now in her 80s. So this is when she was 56, I think. She had a stroke. And I'm doing an energy healing on her, just trying to, soften her energy and bring her back into her body. When all of a sudden I hear in my ear, "You're not to blame for your mother's pain." And I went, "What?" And I heard it again. "You're not to blame for your mother's pain." And in that moment, I realized that I had been carrying this deep, deep, deep judgment on myself, because mom, who really suppressed herself more than dad, would get so angry. And I mean, she tried to be the best mom she could be, but in her need to be the best, she was really disconnecting from her true self. And that's where we get angry, right? That's where we get sad. That's where we get depressed. And so in her disconnect, as a little kid, I'd see her get emotional. Well, what do little kids do? We internalize our parents' reactions. And even though everything that she was going through had nothing to do with me, I took it and made it my own, which is what we do as children. So I internalized all this stuff. So I grew up believing I am bad. What did that make me do? It made me want to prove that much more so that I was worthy, right? I'm worthy of being loved. I'll never forget, in high school, I got molested by a modeling agent. I didn't tell anybody. I suppressed. It didn't come out for years later. But I got angry, of course, because here I am. I'm suppressing my voice. I'm suppressing my pain, my feelings, instead of treating myself as if I'm worthy. I'm treating myself as if I'm unworthy of being loved and nurtured. And my mom and I have a bout of, a fight one day, and she says, "I love you, but I don't like you. Why can't you be more like your sister?" Now, she didn't know that I'd been molested, okay, because I didn't tell anybody. But when she said that, I internalized that one again, saying, I am the problem. I am bad. So we don't realize, like, a lot of us are doing self-help stuff, but until we get deep into the core of our badness and the things that we hold on to that we need to forgive ourselves for, then we're going to stay at a low vibration because we're holding shame and guilt. And shame and guilt are the two lowest vibrations there are. And because energy always attracts similar energy in the law of vibration, law of attraction, if you are holding those energies, you can be doing all the self-help in the world. You can be saying, I am worthy and I am enough. But if you are holding those lower level vibrations that say, no, you're not, you're bad, then you are going to attract things that feel like punishment. So that's what I teach now, is that we have to, yes, do the work, but we got to go deep. We got to go so deep into breaking the generational cycle of really saying that that might have been my mom and dad's story, but it's not my story, right? I'll give you an example of how something that happened when my oldest daughter was in high school. She had a bad car wreck, and it was her fault. So 4 people were injured. Well, I was afraid of losing everything because I'm her guardian, and I'm thinking I've got this little nest egg and everything's about to go away. So I was freaked out. I mean, freaked out. I mean, you know what you do when you go into survival, right? You're holding on for dear life. But I know that my outer world is a mirror to my inner world because that's the energy. So I started going within and looking to ask little Terri, what's this about? What is this mirroring to you? You're so afraid of losing everything. And I looked at my dad, who had lost everything in bankruptcy, and thinking, well, that's his story. That's not my story. Well, then I traced my dad's life back, and I saw that as a kid, they were so poor that he would go buy or pick flowers and sell them on the corner to be able to make some money. Well, his dad, who was in and out of prison, would go beat up my dad, steal the money, and go buy alcohol. So my dad was living out his story when he lost everything in bankruptcy, that all the goodness I have will go away, right? Because it was a mirror to his childhood. Well, it was really easy for me to think this is my story too, but because I had the tools to go deep within and look at this and say, wait, this isn't my story. This is daddy's story. He was working it out. That doesn't mean I have to take it on. And let me tell you what was so cool. As soon as I had that awareness and shifted the vibration, within 2 days, the insurance agency called me and said, well, you're not going to believe it. After all this time, everybody has signed off and no one is suing.
Oh, amazing.
So I raised my worthiness.
Yeah.
Okay. I raised my worthiness, and then the world mirrored that back to me. So I just, for me, this is where I'm on a mission now, because I see so many people struggling and hurting and really trying to get ahead. The pandemic was a prime example of people in survival mode, because you had certain people fighting for this and certain people fighting for that. And when you looked at it closely, it's like, oh, we're all in survival, where we're in survival because we're in poverty consciousness. And poverty consciousness is when you are holding the energy and being in a low vibration. So my goal is to help people cross that divide of lack and move into a high worthiness quotient and prosperity consciousness.
Let's talk a little bit about what we need to do to go deep, to change the energy around that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So for the first thing is we have to redefine love. I mean, we are so programmed to believe that love means that I must deny myself, that we have to really reprogram that and commit to loving ourselves unconditionally. And that means giving ourselves a voice. That means setting boundaries. That means whatever you need to do, but doing it. And here's the key, because this is what we miss: without guilt or shame. Okay. The guilt or the shame. Because a lot of times, how many times do you think, okay, I'm loving myself, I'm going to the gym, right? But you're at the gym and the whole time you're thinking, I should be doing this, I should be doing that, I need to get home, that is guilt.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you're coming from a space of, oh, I really don't deserve this, that's shame. Okay. So when you have those kind of thoughts and you're having beliefs inside of you that are triggering those thoughts, because there's something inside of you that is triggering those thoughts, then you're putting yourself back at a low worthiness quotient. So you really want to redefine love. And then the second one is you want to stand in your truth as much as you can. And one of the key things that I do in every situation, if it brings out any kind of negative feeling whatsoever in me, is I know that my outer world is a mirror to my inner world. And I have got to go deep, 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 deep. Now, I know a lot of us do this, right? I mean, especially here in your community, people are already doing healing work, but we really want to go into the space of, if, like, for instance, if you had a belief that says, I can't speak my voice. Well, if you've been doing some self-help work, you probably know I can't speak my voice. But why?
Right.
Why? What is down so deep that says you can't speak your voice? Is there a family blueprint? Is there something where you were punished when you did? A lot of my work is about cleaning up the punishment energy, because when you're living in a low worthiness quotient and you're continually trying to push, you are in punishment energy. So we want to clear that out, right? So that would be the second one, is to really stand in your truth. And then the third one is to lead with love. Now, a lot of times, we struggle with, what is my purpose? What am I doing? And what I've seen over the years, which has been so cool, is that as I have really stood in my truth and listened to the inner guidance, took inspired action, I was leading with love. And then because I'm treating myself as if I'm worthy, there's miracles that show up.
Yeah.
But what's so cool about it has been, is I've gotten deepened into my purpose. Because if you're fighting with that battle of I must deny myself to be loving, it's very different than I must love myself to be in my greatest act of service. And when you lead with love, you want to get grounded in that. And so for me, what I saw over the years is my husband's shift. My late husband said to me, I feel better in my skin than I ever felt. And I said, why? And he said, you forced me to it. I'm like, he was a 250-pound gorilla. I'm like, how did I force you to it? And he said, when you quit caretaking me to find yourself, it forced me to find myself. And now I feel better in my skin than I've ever felt. That's pretty cool, right? I'm
Very
Yeah.
cool.
given that, especially before he died at the age of 56. I'm so glad I gave him that gift. And
Yeah.
then Charlie, my husband now, I'll never forget. He was pulling some oracle cards, and he kept pulling soulmate. So it was bothering him, because I'm his third wife. His first wife left him. His second wife killed herself, and then I came along. So it's a trigger for him,
Yeah.
right? So he keeps pulling the soulmate card, and he has this aha, and he comes walking down the stairs to me. His chin's quivering. He's crying. He said, I've been pulling this card and I couldn't understand it. He said, I always knew you loved me, but until you taught me to love myself, I couldn't receive your love.
Oh.
And now I do.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I've really gotten grounded in the belief that my greatest act of service is when I lead with love. And to me, to not get into religion or anything, but leading with love, honoring and loving the way I was created, is actually putting God first. So many of us were raised in religion that to put God first means to put yourself last, which that's the self-denial again, right? That we see in the family so much. And so that can be deep in our core when we are trying to receive and then wondering why am I not receiving? Because there can be that belief that, oh, and you don't even know it's there. It's just so embedded in our culture, right? Putting yourself last is putting God first. Well, when you can realize, well, wait, when I honor and love the way I was created, this is putting God first. This is saying yes. And that's when you cross the divide of lack and move into a high worthiness quotient, because you are saying yes and you are leading with love. You're claiming your crown. So
Well,
does that help a little bit?
yes,
Wow.
yes. And what it brought up for me was in scripture, you see the words rejoice. That means that we've had joy before because we're to rejoice, right?
Yeah.
And in remembrance of who? Of me,
Mm.
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Like that's where the joy is. And
Yes.
that is what God called us to do. So that just
Right.
reminded me.
But you're so right, Leonka, because I mean, really think about in our culture. I don't know how you guys were raised, but in most cultures, and I've raised children, right? My kids are now, my oldest I've got two grandkids. So our culture tends to be just like the animal kingdom. The mamas put their babies first. With most animals, not always, but you're putting your babies first,
Yes,
right? And
yes.
then in our human culture, we usually put our partner next, and then we put ourselves last.
Mhm.
But when you go back to like even biblical stuff where it's put God first, that has been translated to I need to put myself last. But what it really means is to put your ego last.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So think about it.
That
So
makes
total sense, right? So
sense.
when you're coming from a space of unconditional love and you are listening to the guidance of this is the step I need to take, where I'm being guided to go, where, my divine path, instead of going, oh, I don't know what to do, because we're performing for everyone. When we're performing, we're at that low worthiness quotient, but what we're really doing is putting our egos first. So I think where we missed the boat in the translation, when we translated to put God first and put your ego last, is God first is you being in your divinity. It is you being all that you were created to be, with unconditional love, meeting yourself with compassion, meeting yourself with forgiveness. And I think that's where we missed the boat, and that's why so many of us don't receive very well.
Terri, for you to even say that, like I get this little tinge in me that's saying, yeah, but is that selfish? Because now you're saying I'm worthy, I am God in me, right?
Right.
Like how can I even stand in all my me and say that I am him, right?
Yeah, like, that
whatever
seems
my voice is,
egoic.
right,
It
right.
seems
It
very
seems,
egoic, huh?
yeah, it does.
Well,
Yeah.
when you go to the Bible, and I'm not a theologian, so, but this is where I've been guided to see.
Right, right,
It says we make up the body. If you're Christian, we make up the body of Christ. So if we make up the body of Christ, therefore we must be a part of God. Therefore we are divine.
right.
And I love that, right? But here's how I know, because everything you're saying, I had the same issues. The reason I know is because as I have loved myself, I have loved more with others.
Yes.
I quit projecting my lack onto my kids. I quit projecting my pain onto my husband and making him fill me up and making him feel responsible. That was just all that crap. By loving myself, I have stepped off of the hamster wheel, which to me is holding a vibration of light and love on the planet, which we so dearly need. I've watched my husbands step into their divinity.
Mhm.
I'll never forget, it was, I don't know how many years ago it was, Marcy Shimoff, Chicken Soup for the Soul. I don't know if you guys know her.
I've interviewed her
Oh, you did? So
years
Marcy,
ago. Yeah, years.
Marcy and I were sort of friends. I mean, we were more like acquaintances, but she and Janet Atwood and Chris Atwood were doing Enlightened Bestseller. It was a class, and I wanted to learn about what they'd done. It was a very small mastermind class. So she says, come on out and take it. So I went out to San Francisco to take the class. Well, they had a whole booklet on, writing your proposal and what needed to go in it, and affiliate marketing and all this stuff. Well, as I'm flipping through the pages, I looked down and I went, oh my gosh. And it says one of their major affiliates had been consciousone.com. Well, Conscious One was our company. And let me tell you why. One day I am at the library some years prior, and I see a tape by Deepak Chopra. I didn't follow Deepak, but my intuition said, grab this. So I grabbed it, took it on. This is a VHS tape. Okay. So this is how old. So I sit down to watch it at home, like, oh, this isn't for me. This is for Steve. And Steve at that time was a garment manufacturer, made private label for Macy's, Dillard's, very successful, listed in the Los Angeles Business Journal as one of the top 100 fastest growing companies. I mean, very, very, very successful. We had a 7,000 square foot house, a 50-foot yacht. I mean, we had it going, right? So he starts watching this tape and begins to cry. When I asked him what was going on, he goes, I don't want to be an achiever anymore. I want to be a seeker. I want to let everything go. Now, he had watched me love myself and shift, and his whole life had been driven by making money. And when I asked him one time why, he said because he wanted to prove his dad wrong. Okay, it was all ego oriented.
Yeah.
But in that moment, he said, I want to let everything go. And we did. We let everything go. He took time off. He took about a year and a half off. And do you know who Neil Donald Walsh is, who wrote Conversations with God? Well, his daughter, Tara, and her friend, Robert, somehow, well, what happened before then, Steve said one day, he goes, I want to do something bigger than myself. I want to do something for the planet and God.
Wow.
And it was not too long after that that Tara and Robert found him. I'm not even sure how they found him, But they said, we have an idea for a company and we hear you're the man to do it. So they created consciousone.com. And
Wow.
Conscious One was one of the first platforms that brought out self-help courses that we see everywhere now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at that time, I had a television show talking to me about doing a spiritual TV show, kind of like The View, only it was going to be called A Spiritual View. And Sonia Choquette was they were looking at 4 of us to host it. They never ended up doing the show, but Sonia and I connected, and she was like up and coming at that time, and she was with Hay House. Well, Steve says, why don't you call Sonia and see if, if any of them would want to be on this platform? Because Neil's on it. Neil, he was our first person. Well, next thing you know, all of those authors were on Conscious One because they had a platform to sell their courses. So going back to the Enlightened bestseller, when I'm looking at Conscious One, which had been years prior, Steve, when Conscious One died, he had a partner, it just kind of went away. Everyone said the heart died when Steve died.
Mm.
But when I'm looking at that and seeing how many people,
Wow.
Jeneth and Marcy and Chris and all of these people had affected for the positive, right?
Yes. I'm picking it up.
It started with me.
Yeah, I know.
It started with me because I was like, I don't like who I am as a mom. I want to get out. I want to get off of this hamster wheel. I want to be better for my family. And it shifted everything. So when you asked, how's that with ego? I know through my own life experience and through coaching people for 25 years that your greatest act of service is when you claim your crown, you love yourself, you stand in your truth, and you lead with love, because that's when you raise your worthiness quotient. So I have no question about that as putting God first.
Oh,
Yeah. I think that the question that might be going into people's minds is, but how? How do you love yourself, right? I mean, I always make a joke about self-care. It's not about like taking baths and doing yoga,
Yes,
right?
yes,
It's
right.
it's really like coming and meeting yourself vulnerably, dropping all the walls and the barriers, and just being able to see yourself, look back on yourself.
Well,
How do
Cindy, how I did it. Can I tell you how I came about doing it? Because I wouldn't have been able to answer that question.
Okay.
I had just read a book when this started back in the 90s. I had just read a book on unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
And so I sat down in meditation. It was by Paul Ferrini, a beautiful book called Love Without Conditions, Reflections of the Christ Mind, I think is what it's called. So I was reading it, and I laid on my floor in my bedroom in front of my fireplace, just sitting there, laying there meditating, when all of a sudden my inner 5-year-old, who I had never seen before, shows up.
wow.
And I am sobbing. I mean, like, because I realized that I have never loved her. I've never acknowledged her. And then I heard in my ear, get up and write this, Terri. This is the beginning of your book.
Wow. Just got chill bumps.
I know.
So that was my first book message sent. And what I was shown is to, again, really pay attention to my outer world. How am I reacting? How am I feeling on the inside? And then I would look at her and say, what's hurting? So I'm meeting her with compassion rather than, well, I shouldn't be feeling this way, right? I met her with compassion and kindness. And I said, what's hurting, little one? I love you so much. What's hurting? And I would let those feelings take me back to, whatever happened in the past, as far as I could go, to get to the belief and say, what is the belief you took on then? Right? What is the belief? And then I know that if a belief is causing me pain and suffering, it is not the truth. So I'd let it go. And then I'd ask, what is my truth? And I would do a soul retrieval. I'd let just whatever, energy is coming back in. I lost playfulness. Oh, I lost playfulness, and let that energy flood in. And then I'd ask her, what do you need from me to feel loved? And when I would get that answer, I would take action. And, if she says, well, just love me, I'm like, I need specific.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. Because we don't know what it is, right? But when we ask, no, give me a specific, and she says, I need to take walks out in nature 3 days a week because I'm really feeling the need to be connected to the earth. Or I need you to go speak up and say what you need to your hubby because you're expecting him to read your mind. And I need you to speak up for me. I need you to protect me. Okay. And so by doing that, as I listened, and I took action, that's when I was leading with love. I was taking inspired action because this is my spirit, my soul talking to me. This little inner child, right, is like, she's the heart of who I am. So I'm taking inspired action. And so by doing that, I ended up getting off of the hamster wheel because I began to trust it so much that as I loved her, I was treating myself as if I was worthy. I felt worthy. I felt seen, heard, and valued because that's the way I was treating myself, right? And then I started crossing that divide of lack to go into a high worthiness quotient. And what was so funny about it, I really got tested with this because when that book was finished, message sent, I did a book tour in New York. It was the beginning of the Iraq War. So everything's getting canceled. Everything. All my interviews are getting canceled because they're covering the wars. Well, my ego at first says, I gotta go make things happen. I gotta start making calls, da, 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 da. And then luckily what I knew to be true stepped in and I said to little Terri, what do you need? What do you want to do? And she goes, well, I want to be a vegetable. I want to just be, curled up in a robe and I want to eat a Snickers bar. I just want to take a day or two off. Okay. Because I'd been really preparing for this tour. And I said, okay. Well, then I had a manager back then, and she said, you really need to go see Thoroughly Modern Millie or Hairspray. They're great metaphors for your work. And I said, okay, let me look. So I looked at it, and the tickets were so expensive, and I am not a big musical person. So I was like, oh, I don't know. I said, okay, if it's for the highest good, show me the way. Let it go. So my intention was that I was just going to nurture myself and love myself. I didn't have any guilt or shame about it. I was like, yes, this feels so good. I'm in New York in a nice hotel and I'm curled up in a robe. It's snowing outside. It's all good. So I'm doing this and really feeling good about it. And then the next morning I got up and I still wanted to go to the gym. So I went to the gym, waiting on a class, talking to this girl, didn't know her, just talking, small talk, go in, come back out, start talking to her again. She goes, so how long you in town? I said, oh, 10 days. And she said, you can see any plays? I said, I don't know. My agent wants me to see Thoroughly Modern Millie or Hairspray. I don't know. And she goes, oh, she says, well, I happen to work in management at the Marriott Marquis and Thoroughly Modern Millie is playing in our theater. How about I take you as my guest?
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Oh,
So guys, think about it. I loved myself and nurtured myself. I treated myself as if I were worthy. I put myself into a high receptive state. And then the universe said, oh, you want to experience worthiness. You want to experience love. Let's show you what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
it's
Wow.
amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So it literally is just seeking and asking, seeking and asking and seeking and asking.
It really is.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, in a lot of ways, that's how I've ended up here. I mean, yeah, there's been a lot of trainings, but whenever I chose those trainings, I knew that they were calling me, right? It's like, so whenever I took a training from somebody, it was like, well, this is my next thing, right? This is what, I was asking for, literally. It's such an ask and receive universe, isn't it? It's just all we really
Yes.
have to do is surrender from that space and really call it in.
Yeah. But that is the issue, is that a lot of times we call it in and then we wonder, well, why am I not being heard?
Mhm.
Why is the universe not responding? And what I truly believe is it's either one of two things, where it's not divine timing yet. And if you're not trusting in the divine timing, then you really got to look at, why am I not? Because that's a sign that you don't feel worthy on the inside, right? You're not
Yes.
feeling like everything is okay. So, it's really about trusting and really looking at it. And then, if things aren't happening, then you got to ask yourself, am I blocking this in any way? Because I believe that when something is in your heart, if it's coming from a space of love, that is the guidance from soul, from God, right? And if it's, that if you feel like, okay, I know this is supposed to be here right now, but it's not, then, are we blocking it?
Mhm.
I'll
Due
give
to
you do
our
what?
constructs, due to our constructs within, right? We don't believe we can
Right.
have it. And
Exactly.
if we don't believe we can have it, I guess that is kind of wrapped up in the worthiness in the whole first place.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's
So
almost like we're
everything
not
comes down.
worthy to have everything that we desire. That would be
Exactly.
wrong.
I mean, just think about what you just said. I mean,
Yep.
because
I
a
know
lot of
what I
times,
just
well,
said. I said it that way on purpose.
because think about what I mean, you might say, well, I have good health, but my career doesn't work. I do this, I do that. When I believe at our core, we are supposed to have it all. I have moments that I
do
still
too.
struggle with things, right? But I believe that we are supposed to have it all and be that expression of prosperity consciousness, which prosperity simply means wholeness. Did you know that? Most people think it's money, but it's really about whole.
Ooh,
And
yeah, we were talked about that earlier. If we were going to do, uh,
We were talking
we're
about words
talking
as
worth
coding.
and profit
Yeah.
as yeah, and to do a hypnotherapy on worth and profit. Just
that's
because
great.
of today, because it's just come up so much. And
Oh, is it?
one of the guys in the feed wrote in, "What about prosperity?" And maybe we have misidentified and misapplied that throughout our life in a way.
Exactly.
I did not. Maybe I need to read the
Yeah.
definition.
Yeah, I looked it up one day because I was like, what is that? And I can tell you a really good story for those guys who asked that question, and I'm sure there are women too. I love this because it was so profound. I had my husband listen to an audio on poverty consciousness versus prosperity consciousness one day. And we have a coffee roasting company here in the mountains of Georgia. We have, it started off with a little store that we purchased from another guy who created it. And it's 700 square feet and it's in a little touristy area, Helen, Georgia, which is kind of like a Bavarian village. So Charlie listens to this because he's been on the road a lot trying to build the company and build wholesale business. So he listens to this tape or this audio that I give him and he goes, I'm in poverty consciousness.
Mm.
And I said, why? And he said, well, I want wholesale business, but I don't want to be on the road anymore. I'm sick of it. I want to be at home with you and the dogs. We had dogs then, and I want to be home. That was our little family. They passed away this last year. So anyway, so he said that, and he said, I'm done. I'm done. Because he'd been watching me lead with love and really release shame and guilt, he did it without shame or guilt. And it was so crazy, you guys. Wholesale business started flooding in. It was crazy. So much so that it afforded us the opportunity. Plus, he opened up the time because he was no longer on the road. Just a few miles down the road, the other direction, a 7.5 acre property came up for sale that I live on top of a mountain, is at the base of this mountain, has the most majestic views you've ever imagined. And we ended up purchasing it. And that became Jumping Goat Coffee Roasters and Tasting Room. And
Oh, fun. My husband
is
would love that.
we have wine tastings, mead tastings, we have coffee, we have beer, we have music on the weekends, we do weddings. I mean, we have this whole venue, right? And
Right?
and so what's been so interesting is on our honeymoon 15 years ago, we saw a coffee house in the mountains of Telluride. And Charlie said, that's my dream. But he kind of let it go because we were blending 3 teenage girls at that time in high school. And, they all had trauma. They had all lost a parent. My kid's dad had died. Her mother had killed herself, so it was a lot to blend, you know?
Yeah.
And so he just kind of let it go. But then all of a sudden, when it was time, signs started showing up. And next thing I know, we buy this little coffee company here in Helen. And next thing he's driving himself into the ground. And then he says, he listens to an audio on poverty consciousness versus prosperity consciousness. And he says, I'm going to love myself without shame or guilt. And boom, 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 boom. And next thing you know, the dream that he had had from our honeymoon, we now live it every day.
Yeah.
With his company or our company. It's our company. He's the one who runs it. I do not run coffee. I can't do it. It's like, I will be an investor, but I am not going to run this company. So,
Yeah,
I got
that's
the
But
best
that's
of
his
both worlds.
dream.
yeah.
That was, that's his dream, and I clap because I get so excited at the what is available for us, what is available for everyone watching. Like I get so excited about like this is how it really, really, really works.
Yeah, it does. It does. I had a very successful businessman just come up to me recently. I did a talk and I was in California and on stage, and afterwards he comes up to me and he was like, "Wow, that just changed everything for me. That explains so, so much." And I think about, if people could understand that when you really truly follow your heart, you're putting God first and you let go of your shame and guilt about making those choices. Because let me tell you, every time you're like, this is what you want, right? Here's the vibration, here's the energy, and you want this, and you say yes to it. But if you have shame and guilt, whoop, it comes down here. Your energy, it comes down here. Well, to have what you want, to create what you want, you got to be matching. So every time we pull ourselves down, it's like, okay, I need to pull myself back up and
Mhm.
allow that to show up.
Yeah. And it's just about seeking and asking a lot of times.
And letting love in.
Yes.
And I know that you have a course to kind of take people through their worthiness quotient. Do you want to share a little
Quotient.
bit about okay,
The
quotient?
course? Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
I love the course. It was totally divinely guided. It has 6 modules, and each module has 3 topics of conversation and meditation. So there's 18 meditations really, where you are going into tools. You're going to get a lot of tools. I call it your spiritual tool chest or your spiritual fanny pack. So you're going to get a lot of tools, but then I'm going to teach you, how to go in and look at your beliefs around receiving, about really standing in your truth, and go into releasing some of the family blueprints that we carry on. So yeah, there it is. There it is. There it is. Um, and it has a beauty queen crown, but it's not just for women. As I just told you,
Well,
that
no,
man
yeah,
just came.
you were telling us about how the success, that your husbands had both had from
Yeah.
the gift that they received
Yes.
from
And
following,
what was so interesting is back then I didn't realize it was worthiness. I
Mhm.
just kept calling it, loving yourself unconditionally, which is what that is. But I didn't understand that when my husband, who, was bringing home $1 million a year after taxes back in the early 90s, that
yeah,
he didn't have worthiness. He had confidence
Yeah.
and he had abilities,
yeah,
but he held on for dear life,
I know
holding
that.
on, feeling like he was going to always lose everything. And thankfully, he started loving himself and made some shifts. I don't think he truly made the real core shift about money, because he died before that happened. But he had made it about everything else, about, I want to do something bigger than the planet and God. I want to do, and that's when Conscious One came about. So, but I'm grateful that he got to a place where he was really loving himself before he died. I felt like it was the greatest gift I could give him.
Yeah.
Was that your boyfriend in when you won the crown?
What
Was that
about him?
was that the boyfriend in the audience
Oh,
when you
no, 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 no. We ended up
Okay.
breaking up. But what was now here's what's so interesting. So that boyfriend, you have to understand, he got into legal problems. He was a wild child. I was the good girl and he was the bad boy. And so he got into a lot of issues and stuff. But thankfully, I did not give that crown up, right? And I took it. And what's so interesting is he claimed his crown. He became a TEDx speaker eventually. Isn't that crazy?
Oh, that's
Wow.
Yeah,
great.
It's great.
yeah,
I love that
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. I
So
love it too.
the link that Jeneth put into the chat, this is just so that we
I
can
can
take a look
show
at
it.
it. But we have a really special offer for everyone. This is showing $297, but Terri has brought it to our guest today for $197. So we will put a special link there so
In the
that you
email.
get the additional $100 off for this phenomenal work.
Yeah.
And this body of work has been, you're showing us right here how it's changed lives, how it's changed your life, how it's changed those you've loved. And this is a body of work, obviously, that has been many years in the working.
Oh, it's been working for so long. And you know what's so interesting is that in the course, as I said, there's 18 audios, meditations, but I broke them down. I broke them down each to 30 minutes, around 30 minutes, because I didn't want it to be
That's
too
a lot.
Still
That's a
done.
lot of
Holy
content.
cow.
well, it's a topic, and then the meditation, and you know, and then there's a PDF with each one. There's love homework for each one. There's a box with a journal. So if you want to do it on the computer and save it, you can. But I really feel, you know, I felt like when I created this that I wanted people to have a tool chest. These are the tools that I have used over and over and over again to clear my life, plus the wisdom that I've gleaned over the years of doing this, of where to take you in the sense of what is getting in the way, right? What is getting in the way of you receiving and really owning your worth. And I feel like, you know, when we can do that, that's the greatest gift you can give somebody, is for them to feel so worthy on the inside that it does not matter what's going on the outside, that you are solid in your connection within, your connection to the universe, to God, whatever you want to call it. When you feel so protected, I can tell you, I was a control freak, and the state of peace and joy and trust that I feel in my life now is, it brings me to tears daily, because I sit in meditation and then I'd like to journal, and I go into gratitude about the love that I'm experiencing, and literally it will bring me to tears. And to me, that is the most amazing experience. All that other stuff that we seek, the love from people, from things, it will not fill you up. It is when you find that connection that you will find it. And on the icing on the cake is you open up your worthiness quotient, you receive.
Oh my God. I love it. Wow.
Yeah,
I'm like,
I was just gonna
out of
say,
words.
you know, in our own journey, and I know that we're wrapping up here, but I walked away from corporate America. I worked in radio and television for a long time, and to be able to do this work, and now I have been lying to myself for the last 12 years because I've been doing it on the side, right? So my passion, my work here, was always side to my career because it was safe, because it gave me that sense of that sense of worthy. It made others, you know, oh, look at those accolades. Oh, she works in, radio, television. You say the names of any of the television stations here in this area, and they're like, oh, you work for KVU. I mean, those are the things that I used to just hold on to as my identity.
Oh,
But
yeah.
as time went on, divine kept calling me, and almost it's that now to the point where I couldn't even ignore it anymore because I was lying to myself. But at the same time, I did not feel worthy enough to walk away from it all, and
Yeah,
safe enough to make a decision to do this as my full-time,
I
job.
get it. I get, and
But
I think,
to follow my
that's why,
dream.
when you're saying that, we want to stay safe, right? We've got, I mean, that's our survival instinct. That's, I mean, that is normal. I mean, we want to live, right? We got to put
Right,
food on the table and a roof over our head.
right.
I think if people can get the concept that as we transition into this state of worthiness, that our needs are met. They truly are. If you go back to the Bible, we were talking about earlier, is like, the faith of a mustard seed is, if you can have faith that the universe is going to show up for you, and you're really, loving yourself and moving into that state of worthiness, it will show up in ways that you can't imagine. Do I have a time to share one little thing?
Go for it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
well, we're live.
So during the during the recession, it was bad, right? In 2008, the market was plummeting. Well, Charlie and I got married in 2008. I had a home. He had a home. We moved into the home with him. So I had my house sitting there, and our mortgage at that time was, I think, $675,000. It was not we'd moved from California to Florida, and it was not a big home. It's just the mortgage was really high. And it was draining me, right? I mean, it was draining, and I'm just seeing the money trickle down, trickle down, trickle down. And I was torn, because I thought, well, do I want to be a landlord or do I want to sell it? And I knew that the market was, really going down. So I thought, well, I'm going to write about what it would look like if I were a landlord. So I wrote bullet points. Okay. And some of them were that they take care of the house as well as I do because I want to show it and sell it, and no animals, things like that. Right. And if there's a issue, if it's a minor issue, I don't want to have to show up over there and fix it. Let them, do that. So I made all these little things. And my realtor had said, you're only going to get 2,800 a month. And I'm like, oh my gosh, because my mortgage was 4,500 a month. So I'm looking at this and I said, okay, well, I said, I want you to do 32. She said, you'll never get it. I said, just do 32. Well, then I started going down the bullet points and I began to ask, what is the truth here? Where am I blocking? Where am I blocking this, or what is the belief? And so one was that it was really hard when everybody on television, the media, everything was saying everything is falling apart, and everything's bottoming out. So I couldn't get to an answer. Look, one of them was like, people who rent don't take care of a place. And what's the belief on that? Oh, well, that's not true. I rented for 4 years and was a better tenant than the owner was of the property. I took really good care. So I'm not the only one on the planet. So I went through and released all these different things, right? Right. Yeah, I'm not the only one. So, but the one that really had me stumped is that there would be anybody who had money to come and rent the place for 3,200 because it just, with the market going like it was. So I just set an intention and I said, show me what the truth is. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for the healing. Thank you for showing me the truth. And I let it go. The next day I turned on the TV. The news anchor says, the market is still crashing. It has not bottomed out. So those who were at the top of the market and got out early are renting before they purchase.
Perfect.
With that belief, right? So I'm like, okay. So I called my realtor and I said, raise it to 3,500. I knew in my heart I wasn't going to get 4,800. That wasn't possible. But I said, raise it to 3,500. And she thought I was crazy. So I sat on it. I sat on it because I was still on the fence. Do I want to rent it? Do I want to sell it? Well, we had an offer come in on the house for 450,000. That's 200 less, more than 200,000 less than what was owed. So that meant if I sold it at that price, I was going to pay the bank.
Sure.
Right.
And I'm like, I am not doing that. So I got really, really clear. And I was now no longer sitting on the fence on which way I was going to go. The next morning I woke up and I said, okay, I'm ready to rent this house. I'm ready to receive my renter today.
Yeah.
That day, my realtor calls and says, this man wants to come and see your house, and he's in the military. He's usually staying in a hotel. He comes in doing special projects. And I said, that's fine. Does he know it's 3,500 a month? And she said, yes. I said, send him over. So I was really holding my boundary, right? I wasn't going to get wishy-washy. He comes over, he looks at the house. He says, okay, I'll get back to you. And he calls me back and he says, how much do you think for cable and electric and all that stuff? And I said, let me get back to you. So next day I call him. I said, I think 500 will cover everything because you're just by yourself. He says, okay. Calls me back the next day. He says, I want the house. I said, 3,500 a month. And then you'll pay also the 500 a month on top of that. So it's 4,000. He said, yeah. I said, okay. And that's great. Well, then he said, Terri, usually I'm staying in hotels and in the summer, I get a budget of 5,000 a month. So I'm going to give you that to take care of any expenses.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. No, that's
amazing.
amazing. That's so.
And then what was so interesting is about a week later, he calls me, he goes, hey, Terri. I mean, we made quick friends. And I said, hey, and he goes, I just want to let you know that the Jack and Jill toilet was running and I fixed it. And I'm like, here we go. And I said, I'll send Charlie over. And he goes, oh, no, I fixed it. I said, you did? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, how much do I owe you? He goes, oh, it was like $5. Don't even worry about it. I mean, he was starting to hit and the house. I mean, it was
all those worries.
Spectacular. Everything. Now, here's the only thing that I didn't ask for. I didn't ask for how long he could stay.
Right.
And I didn't put that on my thing. So I think it was around 6 months. He said, I'm going to have to go. And I'm like, no, you're the perfect renter. I can't believe this. No. And he said, well, he says, I'm going to see if I can stay a little longer. He calls me back and he said, I can stay, but I can't pay the 3,500 a month. I think it went down to 3,000. I said, you know what? I don't care.
Yeah.
You are. So in the end, when I averaged, because he ended up staying, I think a total of 8 months. I can't remember exactly, but when I averaged it out, I got 3,500 a month for rent
I
plus
knew
the
it.
500. I mean, it was so crazy. And,
That's
you know,
awesome.
and that really got me really grounded in, because a lot of times when we wonder why we're not receiving, here's another reason is it's because we haven't really committed to which side of the fence we want to be on. You know,
Mm.
like I hear people, and I've dealt with this, you know, putting myself out in the world, but then the fence right here is like, well, my life is really comfortable. Do I really want more work? Do I really want to do that? You know, and so that I'm sitting over here. And I still have those moments of waffling because I'm 62 years old. I've got grandkids and I mean, we've got a thriving business. It's like, do I really want to do more? But then my soul says, yes, that's why I'm writing my next book right now. You know, yes, you are being called to write this next book. And so I'm listening. You know, I'm getting off the fence. But that's another reason a lot of times we don't receive something where we're wanting a change. Maybe we're wanting a change in business. We want a better job or whatever. But there, you know, there's pros and cons to everything. And so the cons tend to get in our head, meaning more responsibility, more this, more that. But what we forget is that if we love ourselves and say yes to it, the universe is going to support us in what we need. And that's what we forget.
Yes, and we do forget that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think we also forget to ask, don't you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Totally.
Belief, right?
Completely.
Yeah.
Knowing that, I don't want to say belief, but with faith and knowing that the universe provides. I think sometimes
Mm-hmm.
I've asked and I'm like, why is it not showing up? And then I really drop in and I'm like, well, because you didn't have the
Yeah.
faith and you're creating from what because you're a master
Because
creator.
yeah, you've got yeah. And you don't
So you're going to create the lack because you're not,
you
because I
don't
wasn't dropping
trust.
into
Yeah.
yeah.
It's almost like trust too. You have
It is
to,
totally
yeah,
trust. Totally
Mhm.
trust. And I
yeah,
think what you said it many times now during this conversation about asking. If you go back to that original belief of to be loving, I must deny myself. Well, if you have that belief, you don't ask very easily because that is not self-denial.
Mhm.
One time I had this instant manifestation and it was so fast and I was I had this brand new Audi and it came with two keys and I lost them both.
Oh no, you sound like my husband.
And one of them I lost inside my house. So I was like stranded, but I knew it was in my house and I had looked for it without like trying to engage the universe or anything. And I had looked all over, cleaned everything up. And finally I called Audi and I said, I'm going to have to get another key. And they're like, yeah, that's going to be $515. And I was like, really? And thinking, and I know it's in the house somewhere,
Yeah.
but I really do need to start driving again and stop sharing my husband's car. And I was like, keys show up, 1, 2, 3. And I literally was just kind of like dropped in, like, I am going to find that. And I walked into the bathroom, and for what of other, for, for, I don't know how this, like, how the cleaning ladies thought this might have been a good idea, but there was my husband's shaving kit on the back next to the bathroom sink, you know, and it's kind of like a bucket. It's got the shaving stuff in it and everything. And there's a book on top of it, like, you know, a bathroom book, right? And for whatever reason, I grabbed that book and there was my key inside his shaving kit. Now, I know I didn't put it there myself, but it was just so bizarre how,
Yeah.
like, in that exact moment, I just happened to grab that book and find my key. It's
I
like,
love
come
that.
on, that's not me just accidentally doing this.
No, I really feel like that's our intuition giving us nudges, you know, that we're
Yes.
whether it's our guides talking to us or whatever. It's just that, you know, we get those little nudges to do something. You know, when my late husband died, I was left quite a bit of money. And then the recession hit. He died in 2007 and 2008. The recession hit. Well, I had not done any investments yet. I just had the money sitting in a money market account to make decisions. Well, before the recession hit, my financial planner's like, you need to do this, you need to do that. And it was literally like someone had a lead blanket, you know, those big weighted blankets over me.
Yes.
And I couldn't move. I couldn't move. And even to the point where he's like, do you have some trauma around money? I'm like, well, my dad lost all my money when I won Miss USA. That could be part of it. I didn't know. But now I know I was being protected because I did not invest. And when everyone else lost 40 to 60% of their money, I didn't lose a penny.
Mhm.
And I'm so grateful that my intuition kicked in like that.
Yeah.
I just thought it was fear, but my intuition was going, pay attention, you are not moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And probably back then you didn't have as much of a discernment.
I
And I
didn't.
bet now you do, you know, because
Most of the time, not all the time.
I know, right? Yeah. I feel like 15 years ago, my discernment between fear and hold back is very different than intuition these days, just because
Yes.
it's been developed. So,
Yes,
just
I agree with you. I'm right there with you. And I hadn't really thought about it, but when you're saying that, I absolutely agree with you that at that time I just saw it as fear,
Yeah.
but it really was protection.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I feel
Mhm.
like we could just talk with you all day.
I know.
But thank you. This has been so amazing. Thank you,
Oh, thanks,
Susan.
guys. I've loved sharing with you, and I hope, do we want to take questions, or is it too late already? Did anybody have any questions?
Yeah.
Well, we can open it up. You guys, if you want to ask Terri a specific question, just go ahead and chime in the chat now. And I also want to remind you, if you're watching this on the replay, there's a special offer link somewhere below, above, around this.
It'll be right next to her picture there. So
Yeah,
you will see
absolutely.
that, and that will be the special offer button. So it'll be a yellow button right next to Terri's picture. So
Yeah.
just look for that, and it will make sure to get you that additional discount. So that, thank you so much for providing that to our audience today.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. Yeah. So I had wanted to see if anybody had a question, but it doesn't look like anyone does.
Yeah, popped on.
Comments,
Yeah.
powerful story, powerful lady, totally amazing. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
So clear and
Very
consistent,
concise.
beautiful. Thank you. So this is Joe, and I can't read the other name because I'm going.
Lottie.
Lottie. Okay. And
Oh,
so
thank you.
I've got some amazing, good comments here. So thank you. Thank you guys for staying on, and thank you for continuing to just take this journey with us today too.
Yeah.
It's amazing conversation. So thank you. I keep using that word.
Do you
today.
have something that you want to unearth?
Oh, I think I talked about it, that having walked away from corporate America to do, some of my friends would be, they know that I am like this. They actually, my friends wouldn't worry about me at all. But I think at one point I used to be worried that, what would people think if I walked away from corporate America, a 6-figure job, and start a podcast, right? Start talking about energy
Energy healing.
right.
Galactic channeling.
They'd be like, girlfriend, what have you gone to school for? Like, what did you do all of this training? And, why did you go to get your master's degree if you're just going to come back and talk about,
You do
energy?
feel like that's still in you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there is that piece of me that, I come up against it because of that safety. And because that's what I've known. I feel like I had to make straight A's. I was raised by my grandparents. So for accolades was how I
got your
connected and
worth.
got my worth. Sing for my breakfast, that kind of thing. I earned my keep.
What were your thoughts to support her in the change?
Well, I can totally understand that. And I think, in our culture, when we start talking about energy, it's changing now, but I truly believe that, there is a, what I would call a spiritual DNA that's been handed down through eons, especially when you look at the old witch trials. and how if somebody was different and they did something different, whether you have a past life in that or not, I believe it's in our system because
Yeah.
it was so traumatic.
Me
And
too.
so I had that. I
Me
had that
Yeah.
experience too. I for a long time had a really hard time saying I'm an intuitive healer and I'm a clairvoyant or whatever.
That was
Because
a long time ago. This was before it was, that's a
right,
long, right? Right? So this was before it was
exactly.
widespread and
Right.
accepted.
Right. And but I live in a religious community, so it's not real accepted still with some people here. Okay. So it is there. And what I would say to you, because you're not dealing with that now, are you? Are you dealing with it or do you have
Yes, I
moments?
do have that. Yes, I
Yeah.
do have that. Where my son, he goes to a Catholic school, and
So you have that. Yeah.
yeah, yes, so I do have a little bit of that still. Yeah, a worry, yeah. But I've, my family and I have talked about that, and my son understands that Catholicism is not the only way, that we have lots of different,
Right.
things into our spirituality. And
I
so,
think the biggest thing for you, just real quickly, when I'm looking at your energy, is a fear of punishment and persecution.
yes,
And and
yes, I
and
was a mistake.
yeah, and so the way that I've handled that and what I would suggest to you and anybody else who's doing this is when we have that fear of punishment and persecution, is that's the little kid inside of you who's freaking out. So when you scoop her up and say, "Okay, I got you. What's scaring you?" And then for me, when I open up to my guides, now I feel like, "Oh, okay, it's not just you and me, baby. We got the whole universe here."
Yeah.
And that starts alleviating some of it. And I did. I mean, the first time somebody said, "I think you're working with the devil," my whole body started convulsing. Yeah. Yeah. So it was an extreme fear for me. Took me years to work through it, but it was just through this process of building this connection to the divine and talking to the little girl inside of me and recognizing she's the one who had the anxiety. She's the one who wants to crawl in a hole. But me, as a woman leader of love and the divine mother to her, in picking her up and then reaching out for my guidance, as you kept saying, right, Jeneth, that, asking for my guides to come and surround me,
Mhm.
that fear of persecution went away because it's real when you have a fear. So yours is a past life is what I'm seeing for you. It is a past life. I don't know if you believe in past lives. I'm assuming you
Yes,
do. Yeah.
yes. I
This is
read.
definitely a past life and it's in your grounding. So what I would say to you is do you ever do any meditations where you go into your grounding and see what's sitting there?
I do.
So what it feels like is shame and guilt
Mhm.
and about some from the past. So
Mhm.
I would invite you to go within and clear out that picture.
Okay.
I know for me, when I went in and looked, I saw, you know, I mean, when it first got triggered for me was when I was in training and I was reading someone and I went like this, and the teacher said, "Get out of the picture," and I was being burned at the stake. And so it got triggered in that way. When I started looking at it to heal it, I went back to see who this woman was. Was she evil? What was she doing? And she was just this little frumpy old herbalist in the woods. But I saw, the people coming after her and killing her.
Yeah.
Well, a few years after that, I went back to that picture and I forgave those people
Oh, wow.
because they were just simply afraid. It had nothing to do with me. It had to do with their fears of survival.
Hmm.
And so I forgave them.
Thank you for that. Just
Okay.
you acknowledging that changed lots of stuff in my energy. I feel like, oh,
Well,
Yeah,
just
it did.
acknowledgement, right, in itself changes so much.
Yeah. When
Wow.
I did that forgiveness thing, I felt a soul retrieval. And we do a lot of that in the worthiness quotient, by the way. We do a lot of soul retrievals. I felt the soul retrieval come in of accepting my psychic gifts,
Mm.
which I had been on that fence, right? And so when I gave forgiveness to them and realized it had nothing to do with me, there was no shame or guilt about me and that past life, right? It was just I was just doing things that served. My local neighbors out in the woods. I was a little herbalist. but they saw it as something bad and fearful. And so when somebody, burns you at the stake like that, you're going to automatically think I am the problem. Just like when my mother, when I heard in my ear, you're not to blame for your mother's pain, I carried in that energy of I was to blame for their pain. But in that moment, when I realized, no, this was just their pain being expressed and fear because they were in a low worthiness quotient. All those people who go and kill people, they're in a low worthiness quotient. Okay. They're in survival. So when they are in that, and they were in that, when I forgave them because I could see their woundedness,
Yes.
then I opened up to retrieve that part of my soul that I had been disconnected from. I mean, you're not really ever disconnected, but I was not integrating into my full being.
Yes. Yes.
Made a huge difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
You
you.
have shifted. I can see the shift.
I know. It feels like she's poof, kind of
Yeah, it does.
a little more, doesn't it?
Yeah, feels really, really good. So congratulations. I'm glad you asked that question. Thank you for
I
asking.
feel like that might have helped a lot of other people too. The other day I was judged and somebody was like, I was like, yeah, I'm going to get on this series. We're going to talk to psychics and mediums and energy channelers. And, and I just kind of made it all really more woo even than it is. She's like, do you believe in that stuff? It was like, yeah. I do. I mean, and it was simply that. And she's like, no, I just think that that's our DNA. And when we die, we just go on. And I was like, wow, you've just cut off a life of magic, and my head was just was like spinning. Because if you've never had an experience like here, like I've heard things in my head, you've heard things in your head. I think that's kind of just the beginning of it. I've had surreal experiences after my father passed. I mean, and, just these epic meditations that have literally changed me. And if you don't have that experience in your archive, so to speak, then I can see how you might doubt this work.
Absolutely.
But, it was just so weird. It just struck me like, really?
And you know what?
Like, how could you not? Almost.
You know what just landed for me, Jeneth, is that you sharing that you were, because you had all this excitement.
I know.
What if you were just being the invitation that just left that little planted seed
I
with
know.
somebody, right?
Right.
That tiny bit of awareness for that person. So bless
Yeah.
you for just, for going
Yeah.
without that, all that
Yeah.
excitement and
Yeah.
energy.
No, I did feel a little judged in the moment, right? But it ended up flipping itself like entirely the opposite way. Because I
Oh,
was
good.
like, thank God I don't align and agree with that attitude, with that perspective, right? Or
And
I
you're
can't
so right when you
see
said
her
you miss out on the magic.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
I'm not choosing that. I'm all for the
No,
magic.
I want it all.
It's like an addiction, isn't it? It's like, I want it all. I just want it
Yeah.
all. I can't tell you, though, how many times I've had women or people come up to me and go, can I tell you something? I can't tell anyone else. If everyone would start talking about their mystical experiences, we would understand that it is very common,
It is.
but people don't. I mean, I just had my relatives, my aunt, my cousin, and my mom were here back several months ago. And I'm sitting there looking at everybody going, oh my gosh, they're all healers. We're all healers. And I'm the one who broke the cycle to say yes to it, right? Because there was this stigma related to it.
Yeah.
And it makes me sad, especially when my mother's family, they're all so creative and they were all such natural healers. And the vast majority of them never owned it. And my uncle in particular, my Uncle Mikey, he was an amazing natural healer just when he walked into the room and brought joy, but he never knew his worth. He never knew his worthiness. And he drank too much. I mean, it was just sad. And I told him one time, I said, Uncle Mike, you're the one I remember from childhood who, would lift me up and I want you to know, how special you are. And he couldn't receive it because he didn't know his worth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
That's sad. I read an email the other day where it was like how they were talking about how women are usually the ones that feel unworthy, but I actually think men have it too, probably to a higher degree because they feel like they can't talk about it. They can't go there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you. You got a man over here shaking his head. I'm seeing a yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Shaking his head no or shaking
No,
his
he was
head
shaking his head yes. And I
nodding.
agree with you because, men are told not to feel their feelings. And so feeling your feelings is key to tapping into your worthiness because you have to say, well, okay, well, am I feeling joyful or am I feeling pain and suffering? And men don't even give themselves permission to go there. Luckily, both of my husbands were kind of Renaissance men and very art creative and artistic. I mean, my late husband was a Marine who became a women's garment manufacturer. I mean,
Yeah,
how did
yeah.
that happen? And
Yeah. Lucky.
first time I ever went out with him, I see him looking around and I'm thinking he's looking at women. And then I finally one day realized, I said, "You're looking at the fabrics, aren't you?" And he goes, "Yeah, what'd you think I was looking at? Their boobs, their hips."
That's awesome.
My husband's an energy healer. He is a software engineer by day, but he does all kinds of energy healing on me, and it's kind of some of the
Oh, I
best stuff
love
I ever
that.
have. It's like,
Oh,
how did he become that? You know? And he
it
just knows, he just knows too. It's
Yeah.
just kind of cool.
And do you find, like with my husband, I'll be working on something, getting to the bottom of it and the nitty gritty and shifting something. And then I tell him, and a week later, he's like, "Oh, yeah, I had that shift." I feel it.
Yes. Yes, that's me. Yes. My
I haven't
husband.
had so much that experience, but that's kind of cool.
We have had that. I mean, and I've seen definitely, I just think that that's because my work and, and because I do want to bring as much information out to people and understanding it. I want to understand and then I want to share that. So I will spend a lot of time,
Yeah.
to going into the nitty gritty of things. I think as you've heard today, like, why are we doing this? What's deeper and underneath here? And, for him, it's just like, okay, I see that I've been doing this. I'm going to stop that. Just like when he said, I'm done
Yes.
with going after wholesale business. For me, especially back then, I would have been going, oh, let me decide,
Yes.
which
Yes.
way feels right. And, I mean, he just did it because,
Found
but
not
again,
found.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
But he did it because he'd been watching me do things,
Yeah.
that, shifting. It's just, I'm a little slower at it.
Mhm.
Well, girls, I thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Thank
Yes.
you. That was so amazing.
Well,
Yeah.
I appreciate you so, so much. And I do hope everyone will grab the Worthiness Quotient
Yes.
course. I would also, can I tell them, well, there's a quiz that they can take, the Worthiness Quotient quiz. I don't know if you want to put that on your page or
Sure.
not,
We'll
but
definitely do that as well.
yeah. And because then you
I
can just,
took that quiz.
yeah.
And I took it when I was like in a really, really like excited state. And I read the questions and I was like, now I know that if I would have taken this when I wasn't in like this ecstatic mood, my answers might be just a little different.
Oh,
Which I thought was interesting, some of the love questions.
yeah.
I thought, I think everyone should take that because it was a huge awareness for me.
Wow. I can't
You know,
wait.
I could really find where I'm kind of missing out in life.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. And that's the whole point of it is to see where am I receiving and where am I not receiving? What's my outer world telling me about where I've owned my worth? Because we can have different areas where one, we may be thriving and feeling like, okay, I feel confident in my work. I feel worthy. I feel like even if I lost my job, I could go get another one. Because there are people that just feel that worth there. But yet when it comes to a relationship, they can't even have a relationship. It doesn't show up for them. So they feel like, well, I can't receive love that way. And it's just important to see the different areas and to bring nurturing to that area that is in lack so you can raise that vibration in that area. But anyway, well, girls, I
Thank
have
you. My
some
gosh,
other things.
I know we went a little long here, but wow, I mean, I love how you tell your stories too.
Oh,
It's just
thank
like they're
you.
so detailed and it's almost like we're there with you.
Well, that's good to know since I'm writing my next book.
Right? Well, yeah.
which will be which will be called the Worthiness Quotient. Claim your crown,
Right.
lead a life of love. So
When does that come out?
I'm I'm writing it. I have no idea. I'm just letting the divine guidance take over, you know? It's like, okay, this is what we're writing about today. No outline, nothing. My enlightened mom, I got an outline and it ended up winning best spiritual book of the year back in 2011, 12, something like that. And at New York and San Francisco Book Festival. And, you know, it was just like boom, boom, boom. This one is like, just follow the daily guidance. And
Right.
so this is a state of surrender and trust. And I'm having fun with it. I actually wake up. I've been waking up at like 5 in the morning and going, okay, let's go do this. So I don't know when it's going to be done. I have no idea.
Oh,
I'm not worried
like the
about it.
flow, though.
Yeah, you'll have to come back
Yeah.
and tell the story.
Absolutely.
How it all transpired. And we'll
Yay!
yes,
Yes,
yes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Kerri,
Yeah.
thank you
Thank you so much.
so much.
Thank you.
All right, we recorded, stopped. We're still live, but the recording has stopped. I'd like to get the interviews like all packaged up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm really appreciative of the people who showed up today. And thank you guys for having me on. It was so fun.
Oh my
I
gosh,
love
thank
questions.
you.
And Leonka, I really appreciate you being vulnerable and talking about your stuff, because I think that is a big thing, especially with people in your group that are probably doing some work already to understand that this is something in our spiritual DNA that, you know,
Yeah,
about
Like,
persecution.
I feel like I asked that question for a lot of people in this community for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for-
All right. I'm
All right.
off. Y'all have a good one. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. All right, you guys, we are out.
Thank you for hanging out.
Yeah, thanks for staying. I know we went just a little long today, but wow.
It was phenomenal today.
Yeah, that was so phenomenal. And tomorrow we've got Masami Covey and we've got Maria Martinez, and we are going to do
Money.
some
Talk
money, wealth,
Mm-hmm.
and we are going to talk cycles in the morning. So join us same time, same place, and we will see you hopefully tomorrow. The replays and links will be out in your emails. And of course, if you ever have any questions, just reply to those emails. We do have a customer service team that's going to help us out. It's her.